Good morning and welcome to our February 7th, 2023 Board of County Commissioners meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome all of you that are here in person, all of you that are watching at home. We have a lot of exciting things going on this morning. Our invocation will be a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And as I've been trying to make our custom, based on a suggestion that when Commissioner Hetherington was chair, she would invite members of our community that have served our country honorably to come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And this morning we have another exciting opportunity. I'd like to read a little bit about Kelly Durga. Kelly is a recipient of the ROTC Scholarship. She earned regular Army commission as transportation officer, where she served 6 years active duty. Due to her exemplary service, she was awarded two meritorious service medals, 3 Army Achievement Medals, the National Defense Service Medal, and Overseas Ribbon. Her favorite assignment was the Movement Control Battalion, where she worked on Ramstan and Rhine Main air bases as a deployment officer and would open airstrips in various deployment locations. Kelly continued doing logistics when she left the military in 1999, and a few notable positions that she held. First job out of the military was transportation manager for NBC Sports and running the international transportation for the Sydney Olympics. Worked for major freight forwarders in Australia and managed their warehousing, trucking, and 3PL departments, and was a global logistic manager for defense contractors that focused on operations in and around Iraq. She then went on to work in the financial industry as a certified financial planner. So she has an illustrious career, and she has served all of us and protected all of us very well, and we welcome you this morning. Please come forward if you would all stand. Nothing like having your bio read out in front of a whole room.
Okay, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. If you would please remain standing, I have another special treat for you. I have heard this young woman sing the national anthem a couple of times, most recently at the Indiantown Rodeo, and she has the voice of an angel. So I'd like to welcome Kylie Butensiek to sing our national anthem. Good morning.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we've hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the racket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Okay. Great way to start the morning. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of additional items. We had a consent agenda number 8, authorize the chairman to sign a letter to Representative Snyder supporting the Village of Tequesta's request for the state to fund improvements to Tequesta Park. We also had consent agenda number 9, adopt a proclamation declaring Black History Month in Martin County, Florida. There were no consent pulls, and that is the agenda as presented this morning.
Move approval of the agenda with the consent agenda, additional items.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith to accept the agenda as presented with the additional items, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now, we have a couple of proclamations, and I see our friend Laura Beaupre is here. Ms. Beaupre, you are recognized.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm not sure if folks have snuck in or not for these, but our first proclamation is declaring 211 Awareness Month in Martin County, Florida. 211 Helpline and Crisis Line continues to be a beacon of hope, providing life-saving crisis support and guidance when people are overwhelmed and don't know where to turn. 211's caring and highly trained staff have been the frontline responders 24/7 through it all. To that end, the board is pleased to acknowledge February 2023 as 211 Awareness Month and urges all citizens to be aware that if they're overwhelmed and in crisis or just need to talk, 211 is available any time of the day or night. And do we have someone here to accept?
211.
We'll accept on their behalf and we'll make sure they get it.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next one.
Our next one is Engineers Week, declaring Engineers Week in Martin County, Florida. Engineers design, construct, and maintain the infrastructure and facilities that contribute to a high quality of life for all residents. Progress and growth depend on engineers executing innovative, creative, high-quality solutions to technical problems. February 19th through 25th, 2023 is recognized as Engineers Week, and the board expresses appreciation to all members of this important industry for their contributions toward making Martin County a sustainable community. Anyone here for that one? We have some missing folks this morning, so we'll make sure they get that one as well, and thanks to all of our staff.
Thank you. Speeds the process right along. Okay. We have several requests to speak forms. Some of them are names I don't recognize, so I would tell you that how this works is we offer at the beginning of the meeting, at the end of the meeting, the opportunity for our public to address us on any of their concerns. If there is an agenda item that you're going to be speaking on and you'd like to speak on it this morning, when we get to that agenda item, you do not get the opportunity to speak on the same topic. So you can either wait for the item or speak now. And then at the 2-minute, you have 3 minutes to address us. And at the 2-minute and 45-second point, you'll hear a tone. That doesn't mean to stop. It just means you have 15 seconds to sort of finalize your thoughts so we don't just cut you right off. And I know some people would like to go beyond the 3 minutes, but when you have a stack of cards, we try to keep it as fair as possible so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. I know that this first name has an exciting opportunity in a program that's available in Martin County through the Stuart Martin Chamber. So if you will indulge us a little bit, I'd call up Gina Masters to explain the program. And fantastic. Angela Hoffman is also with her. They run a program for the Stuart Martin Chamber. And if you could explain it to everyone, and then I know you have some certificates to hand out. Don. Let them have it's going to be longer than 3 minutes. We're going to hand out some certificates.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you mentioned, my name is Gina Masters, and this is Angela Hoffman, and we're here from the Career Connect Martin program through the Stuart Martin Chamber. Many of you, Commissioners, are already familiar with the program. Some of you in the audience may not be, but this is it is a grant-funded program that actually was awarded through the Board of County Commissioners here in Martin County to help local employers who were looking for new employees to train. And so we've been able to successfully assist upwards of about 50 people in the last short 11 months that the program has been in effect. And we have been able to we write resumes with them. We've done some soft skills training in classes with them. And then those that are present today were the only ones that were able to attend, but we do have more successful completers in the program. So we're going to call up the following individuals that not only completed their soft skills classes and their on-the-job training with the local employers, but they were all hired on for permanent, full-time positions as well. And we also, thank you. We also have the employers present to present them with their next level employer certificate. So we'd like to invite.
Ms. Masters, if you could tell folks how they can get into this program in the future.
Absolutely. We have a website, the Career Connect Martin website. We also have a Facebook page. You can call directly to, I have cards available if anybody would like more information from me directly. I'm the program coordinator for the program there. And along with myself and along with Angela, have been able to help many Martin County residents because it's a requirement. That's really the only.
You must be a
Basi-
Martin County resident.
You must be a Martin County resident, and the business, in order to participate, also must be a Martin County business.
How long is the program?
It really depends on the participant
Okay.
and their commitment to becoming employed. I had actually one participant that's here today, between coming in the office and starting trial employment was within a week.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you call them up? We can recognize them and the
Absolutely.
employers. If you're an employer looking to hire skilled and qualified employees, you can also contact the Stuart Martin Chamber for career.
Yes, and we cover the first 120 training hours while the employer trains them. So we pay $15 an hour for the first 120 hours. So it helps mitigate the risk of hiring for for employers.
Okay, very nice.
Yes.
Great program.
Thank you.
Let's recognize the people that have made it through.
Well, these are just some of them.
Some of the people that have made it through.
And if you'd like to come down, you can do a handshake, because we'd like to do a group photo at the end. So first, I would like to call Miss Opal Wilson, and she successfully completed her trial employment as a paraprofessional at Crystal Lake Elementary School, so she was with the Martin County School District. We also have Shannon Armstrong, who is here with the Martin County School District to accept their certificate. Next, we would like to call Jordan Wigington, and she successfully completed trial employment at the City of Stuart Public Works Department. And we'd also like to call the City of Stuart up, which is Roz Johnson and Milton Leggett, to accept their certificate. We appreciate your involvement in the program. Next, we have Ricky Bossio, who successfully completed his trial employment with Sovereign Marine Group. He's the one who within a week was working. He knew when he came in what he wanted to do and how we were going to help him make it happen. So he just recently completed. And we'd like to present Sovereign Marine Group, which is Paul. I think Paul's here as well. Yes. Next, we have, I hope I say his last name right, Tyler Gambon. And he successfully completed with AC Care, which is Donnie Myers. And Donnie Myers is also here to accept their certificate on behalf of the employer. We have a big group today.
Yeah. Good luck taking this picture.
I don't know who the photographer is going to be. And then last but absolutely not least is Carmen Montesano, and she completed with the Hope Sound Farmers Market over there. If we all know, I'm sure we all know Zach Gaza. And Zach Gaza is here to accept their certificate on behalf of the Hope Sound Farmers Market as well. Thank you.
Zach, you're tall. Come back there.
Are you turning this way? Like here? Okay, there we go.
Priceless.
Yeah, this is probably the right spot over here. That way.
Yes, agreed.
Right where you are. I think that's.
Yeah, I'll avoid that for the rest.
No.
All right, who are we looking at?
We're going to start here. Here we go. I didn't want to leave, I'm sorry, I left out, but we also work with a lot of community partners, and one that I invited today for graduation, which is Lisa Dame. She's with Reverse the Door, and she sent multiple referrals over to our program to help folks get employed. So that's a really excellent program that's right here locally as well. Thank you.
And how about that? Just under 3 minutes. That was perfect. Our next request to speak for him is Guy Glendening. Sir, good morning. Welcome. Wait, get to the mic first, otherwise nobody can hear you.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Guy Glendening. I live at 1063 Southwest Berry Avenue. I'm a retired Maryland State Trooper where I was a flight paramedic. After raising 4 children up north, I knew my retirement place was in the state of Florida. Not knowing exactly where, being a U.S. Coast Guard captain, I knew it had to be along the shores. I traveled along the Gulf and the Atlantic and finally found home. I found Martin County. Martin County had a family atmosphere, many golf carts and families waving and saying hi. It just felt right. Thank you for this gem in Florida. In January, I was surprised and shocked to see an electric sign on Martin Highway stating that illegal golf carts are subject to citations and may be towed. Being an owner of a golf cart who uses it a lot, looking out for conservation in particular, I found this very puzzling. My experience in law enforcement and management, I have learned that the shotgun approach of management never has a positive influence on anyone or anything. Responsible golf carts should not be penalized. I understand the Sheriff's Office has received many complaints about golf carts, particularly in certain neighborhoods, juveniles operating recklessly. I feel action should be taken against the irresponsible operators. The Sheriff's Department does have a good history in handling crime and a great reputation throughout the country. But I think there needs to be another focus. Trailers being operated on Martin highways with no fenders, sending loose bricks and debris on traveling vehicles. Yesterday, I saw an electric scooter being operated with a parent and a child outside of a school district, picking a child up from a school without a helmet on, but that's not being focused on. Trailers, again, being operated without lights on, without chains on, and no one doing anything about it. I am happy to say after many hours and several trips to several tax collectors, I now own a fully street legal, slow-moving vehicle, which the law states. It is insured and tagged by the state of Florida. Being a paramedic for over 42 years and a Maryland State Trooper, I understand safety is the most important. I respect and think the Martin County Sheriff's Department is a great department, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with Sheriff Snyder in the future. Thank you for your time. I wish to finish by saying I love Martin County. You have done a great job. Please always remember, common sense is the best way to manage. Again, my name is Guy Glendening, and thank you for being my representative.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your service. Our next request to speak for him is Dr. Steve Roshan. Good morning, sir. I got a little pain right here, my shoulder right here. Sorry.
You don't want to do what I did. Good morning, commissioners and staff and guests. And I appreciate the opportunity to express some concerns about airport noise and ask for an increased effort to address remediation to homeowners affected by the increasing noise and noise pollution. My name is Steve Roshan. I live at 3402 Southeast Inlet Harbor Trail. My home is one of the 47 homes scheduled for FAA assistance in noise remediation as it sits under the approach of runways 1230. There is a joint county and FAA program that's intended to monitor and remediate homes affected by airport noise. A previous round of remediation was completed around 2004, and a new study was determined to be needed and began in 2018, and the basic work was done in 2019. The homes that will fall in a zone with increasing noise pollution around the airport have been determined, and they've been notified of a process for remediation. There's been a consultant hired who I believe is employed by the county and the airport to implement the process and to work with homeowners and federal and local authorities. The process is complicated and slow, but I believe that it can be expedited. In October of 2022, the consultant indicated that the detailed information and confirmatory testing would begin as early as January of 2023, and the remediation could begin in 2024. Since that meeting, those commitments to be timely have already fallen 3 months behind. The process seems to be bogging down as the information available to owners is scant, and only a testing demonstration for late March is scheduled. I believe the program is likely to fall at least a year behind without a sincere effort to expedite and speed up the process. Frankly, the consultant his feet need to be held to the fire to be timely and efficient. As a result of the slowness, FAA deadlines for funding will unlikely be met for this year and could jeopardize the whole program. The final funding has to be submitted for the fiscal year of 2025 in order to do this. And as you know, if you don't have the request in, you're not going to get it. Thus, I'm asking the Commission to instruct the consultant in the airport to give twice monthly updates on progress and to convey clear instructions that remediation should begin in 2024 and that delays are just simply unacceptable. And I also believe that in order to do this, part of the program is that the consultants need to come in the homes, determine how bad the noise is, what remediation can be done. That should begin immediately this month. That's my request.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Stokes, you heard what he had to say there, right? No, we don't want to get into the answering back and forth to individual comments, but Mr. Stokes and his staff we have your information. I'll have someone contact you to get that going. This, not all of us are involved in every detail, so this is the first I'm hearing of this. But, at least to be able to explain and lay out the timing and let you know what the timing is and to have some kind of a bi-monthly update is perfectly appropriate, I believe.
Appreciate that concern and involvement. Thank you.
So I'll give your information to Mr. Stokes to follow up, and Mr. Carver, our airport manager. Our next request is, Don, do you have the ability to make that like a tone at 2:45? We used to have it where you'd heard like a little beep. Okay, just because otherwise people think they're waiting for the tone and there is no tone. So then I sound like a lunatic. Miss Bernita Cook is next. Miss Cook, welcome back.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Bernita Cook. I live at 5635 Southeast Green Lane, next to D.R. Halton Development, known as Caner Lake Project. I spoke to you last year about saving my home and the home of my neighbors who are facing floods and mold problems caused by the failure of D.R. Halton to install proper drainage and stormwater managed system on their property. You are aware of the problem and has tried to help by asking D.R. Halton to stop working on the projects except for the landscaping until the flood issues are resolved. In the meantime, my home is still unlivable. I'm still using the bathroom with a slop jar. There's still mold is causing serious health problems for me and my family, including respiratory problems that I never had in my entire life until the D.R. Halton project. When I talked to you in December, you expressed your sympathy and said that you knew that there might be a problem with the flooding because of the new development. My home has been around more than my home has been around more than a decade, and so have Ronning RV Park. My neighbors on Green Lane also been around as long as and also suffer from D.R. Horton project. We cannot live comfortable and safely in our home. Mr.
Campy.
Mr. Campy, this suggests that D.R. Horton should be responsible for the mold treatment in my home to remove the hazard. D.R. Horton has refused to request to pay for me to stay in a hotel until my home has be repaired prepared and made safe. I finally have an attorney who is trying to help me and who has met with the county staff, but time is running out, and I'm fearful and afraid of my home. I don't understand how a big developer can come into my neighborhood and do this to our residents. In Hope Sound, you allow people to be forced out of their home because of the drainage and storm water management was not done right. For God's sake, don't let this happen to those of us who live next to D.R. Horton development. Please, and I mean please, promise me that you can require D.R. Horton to do the things that I am asking for my home to be repaired, for the drainage problems to be currently, and for the drainage problems to be corrected, and for the development to follow the county rules and regulations that designed to prevent the destruction in our neighborhood. I'm asking you as an elected representative, I'm asking you all, and I'm a taxpayer, can y'all please help me and make him follow the rules? I beg of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Oh, Jesus.
You did it. You did it. Commissioner Heatherington.
Mr. Donaldson, we've had a number of different conversations about this, but the last, we were waiting for D.R. Horton to submit plans for their drainage. Have they done that?
Yes, they have submitted plans to, one, repair the drainage area that had failed, and that's currently under review in the engineering department. And there's also been a letter regarding our situation with Ms. Woods' help prepare. So,
What about the sewer connection? I believe that's their lift station. Can that be done before the drainage problems are connected?
so I think it's important to note that while the county recognizes that there was damage done to Mrs. Cook's property, there's certain responsibilities that D.R. Horton, can make, but we can't. The two property owners need to come together on a solution. If not, I think there's potential litigation involved, and we may be involved in that as well. So we're taking a careful approach. We certainly recognize the damage that was happened to Ms. Cook's property. We've documented it well. We will not allow the other project to move forward until such time that it's demonstrated that it won't cause damage again. But the remedy to the existing situation is it's an ongoing situation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. To be continued, ma'am. It's not over. Our next request to speak for Ms. Jacqueline McCree. Good morning. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Jacqueline McCree is correct, yes.
How about
I live in a development in Palm City called Berry Grove. I'm friends with Guy and his girlfriend, so I'm just going to expound on what he talked about with the golf carts. We use them for recreational. First of all, let me backtrack. I am a retired critical care nurse for 40-plus years, 31 of them at Morton Health Systems. So my husband and I moved here from way across the bridge in Stewart, and we bought a golf cart, and we enjoy it with a lot of our neighbors who have them. I'm going to guess maybe a quarter of the people who live in Berry Grove have golf carts, at least. We use them to go to local restaurants. We never go on Martin Highway or Martin Downs. So now comes into play the hardship that is going to be created by most of us having to have these golf carts converted to low-speed vehicles, which is going to cost, just for the equipment itself, upward of $2,000. That's to have that. And then it has to be registered, it has to be weighed. They have to bring it down to West Palm to weigh the vehicle. We have to get insurance on it, PIP. So all total, it's going to be about $3,000, which is a huge amount of money. So I think what we're just hoping that you can back off on what we have to deal with. And I know that most of us drive on the sidewalks. The sidewalks in Palm City are extremely wide. We always, if someone's coming in the opposite direction, whether it's somebody walking their dog, whether it's somebody jogging, or kids riding their bikes, we always move over and give way. So what we're asking, I think, is just to reconsider and put maybe a new proponent out there that we don't have to do this, that we are definitely rule followers. I know this all started with kids that were driving golf carts that were under 16 years of age. So it's just my request, and most of us who live in that area, whether it's where we live in Berry Grove or across the street is Berry Estates, which are D.R. Horton developments, I might add. We just want some consideration for those of us that use them, for just for having fun and going to restaurants with, a caravan of maybe 3 or 4 of our friends who have golf carts. That's what we do. We're retired folks. We just want to enjoy that lifestyle.
Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you so much.
I will say that for the folks with the golf carts, it seems to, I'm sure it's an issue across this county, but in Palm City, it's a big issue. The sheriff is handling it legally, and, he's handling it by state statute, and the rest, I've received dozens and dozens of emails about it, some very passionate. What you said, ma'am, it's interesting that both of the speakers, one being a lifelong, a longtime paramedic, and now a nurse, can realize the outcome of what could potentially happen. I will tell you that where I used to live, they have golf carts in the neighborhood, and quite often it would be, I don't know, I'm guessing, an 8-year-old in a wet bathing suit driving a golf cart with 10 of his friends hanging off the golf cart in like a clown car. And not that many months ago, maybe 6-8 months ago, the neighborhood was filled with ambulances and police cars because one of those little kids flew off the back and cracked their head open. That's what we heard. And so, obviously when we hear reasonable adults talk about being able to have that as a service, it's the parents and the children that it's a free-for-all, very dangerous, not just for the children or the people using the cart, but like you said, someone could be a pedestrian or walking a dog and not expect a golf cart to come out across the sidewalk. The point about the motor scooters or electric bikes is a huge new issue now because they're silent, they're very fast, and if you're pulling out of a side street as a driver in a car and you look down the road and you see someone on a bicycle that's 150 feet up the road, you assume you can pull out, judged on what your driving experience has shown you about a bicyclist. You don't realize that that's an electric bicycle that's on top of you within seconds and crashing into the side of your car. I mean, it's a shocking set of circumstances that we're dealing with, and it's difficult because I hear your concerns. I would also tell you, and I've asked my aide, back during the pandemic, when we were still having our meetings in the Blake Library, a community in Palm City was very well organized. It was a split neighborhood, I would say. Some people absolutely did not want the golf carts, and others did. And the group that did was very well organized, and they came, and we had an agenda item where by the end of and it's on tape, so it's you can go back and watch it. They realized that by the time you put all of the components into place to make it like a golf cart friendly or acceptable community, they basically realized that they were not going to be able to pull that off. So as far as I'm concerned, would I personally let you grown-ups who are going to be responsible, use your carts for all of the benefits that you mentioned? I get that. But it's all the people that refuse to do what you're doing, that refuse to follow the rules, the kids that don't even put the headlights on if the cart has headlights. Commissioner Jenkins was mentioning that your estimates on what it would cost to street legalize a golf cart are probably low. But if it continues as an issue in Palm City, in particular in my district, we can have a meeting, bring out my lawyer just got panicked, just to have a conversation, because I can't guarantee anything about it. I would tell you that, I like to be a can-do person. I would tell you most likely it's going to be a very tall mountain to climb, but I want everyone to at least be educated on the process of what can and cannot happen. That made lights go on. We'll start with Mr. Donaldson.
Commissioner, I think the citizens who want to have golf carts on public streets, their comments are best addressed to our state representatives, as it's state law that does not allow the counties any ordinance flexibility on this issue. So,
and that part as well.
So that, I think the concern I'd have is you may have conversations, but ultimately, this board is powerless to make any change.
I don't normally like to hear that. Commissioner Smith.
I would also add that the sheriff is vehemently opposed to any alterations to that for the conversation that we had the last time. Unfortunately, he's the one that ends up having to enforce it, and at least the conversations we had back when with him were that he had no interest in us going off the record, or off the edge, if you will, in terms of doing something less than that.
That being said, I see members of the public shaking their heads. I get what we're hearing. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a state representative, but I am your representative. So with that in mind, if we have to have a community conversation on it, maybe at the end of the conversation, it doesn't come to fruition that you're allowed to drive carts on the street, but at least we'll have a very good understanding of all of the players that have a say in it. Obviously, we don't, except I will facilitate that conversation. That being said, we will move on to our next request to speak form by Mr. Tom Pine. Mr. Pine, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Excuse me. My name is Tom Pine. I've been a resident of Martin County for over 50 years, presently living in the Jensen Beach area. The consent agenda, the county slush fund has $15,570,148 in expenditures between January 10th and January 23rd of 2023, without identifying the payees or the purpose of the payments. Our county government also hides special deals for their friends in the Martin County Chamber of Commerce in the consent agenda. Now the county's comprehensive planning and administrator wants to hire a consultant for $400,000 to analyze public and privately owned lands in Martin County's western agricultural area. On the surface, that sounds like a great idea. But I remember the last time the county hired a consultant, it was a one-sided con job. The consultants were hired to promote the fire assessment tax. They showed their true colors. They weren't there to give both sides of the tax increase story. They were there for one reason and one reason only, to push the county's stance on a fire assessment tax. Fortunately, Martin County taxpayers saw through the con. The Martin County Comprehensive Planning Agency worked half as hard for the taxpayers of Martin County as they worked for the developers. We wouldn't be in this place to start with. But I do understand they don't actually work for us. They don't actually work for the taxpayers. They work for the county commissioners, which in turn works for the Martin County Chamber of Commerce, where all that matters is build, build, build. I went to the ribbon cutting for the new RV campground at Phipps Park. And as I was driving down Southwest Locks Road, I remembered not many years ago at a county commission meeting, it was brought up to possibly have KOA develop Phipps Park. where it was quickly shot down because of a strong pushback from residents throughout the area because of the high amount of traffic it would generate. I guess since the county is going into more and more business ventures, residents' concern no longer matter. Sad but not surprising. Now it's all about the money. Just like corporate America. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pine. Our next request to speak for is Ms. Donna Melzer. Ms. Melzer, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Campy, Commissioner. Good morning. I am Donna Melzer of Palm City. The supplemental agenda item asks for approval of a $400,000 in Western land study that may be too late because of an approval by 3 of you last September 13th, and we hope that you reconsider that. Changed Policy 4.7A5 that provides development options for our western lands was approved on page 8 of 9 of the Rural Lifestyle Ordinance. A well-respected planner has opined and testified that this changed Policy 4.7A5 means that, in addition to agriculture, the current use, the rural lifestyle, commercial, and residential uses will be allowed anywhere outside the urban service district boundary and without probably a future land use map amendment. That's costly urban sprawl from here to Lake Okeechobee. We remember that Maggie Hercello warned us. Before wasting $400,000, number one, please direct a workshop on a thorough legal and planning analysis of the changed Policy 4.7A5. Or better, rescind the Comp Plan Amendment 2108, September 13th, 2022 approval, and then talk workshops and then a study. Our award-winning Martin County Comprehensive Plan requires urban development, which includes commercial, to stay limited to the area inside of the urban boundary. The changed Policy 4.7A5, and I've handed out a handout that outlines it, okays urban development outside the urban boundary, i.e. the heart of our Martin County Comp Plan. The urban boundary will end. If changed Policy 4.7A5 becomes law, Western Martin County, more than 160,000 agriculture acres, twice the acres inside our urban boundary, can have urban development with just a development order on a Tuesday. Costly sprawl allowed from here to Lake Okeechobee. Check out Harmony's court filings. They seem to expect an approval of a mixed-use development. My apologies, I thought I put it on airplane mode. A mixed-use development outside of the urban service boundary, including commercial land, and without a comp plan amendment. Our treasured Martin County's quality of life and responsible growth are hanging in the balance. Please reconsider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm now at our last request to speak forum. If anyone else would like to address us for this morning portion, you can ask our bailiff to give you one of these request to speak forms. That's him right there waving. If not, our last speaker this morning will be Mr. Rick Hartman. Mr. Hartman, good morning.
For the record, my name is Rick Hartman, and I want to follow up with what Donna was saying. Your land use study for the Western lands, my understanding is we have 2 land use studies that have been done in the past, and they're on the shelf. Rather than spend $400,000, we've got a really good planning staff. Why don't you direct staff to pull those two old plans down, study them, modify them, do what we need to do. This Royal Lifestyle Amendment that was done, do I like it? No. But anytime you can preserve land in Martin County, we need to preserve it. And I think if we don't, at some point, the state legislature will tell us what to do with their land. So anytime you can get a land use amendment in front of you that's going to preserve land, I'm for it. My understanding is there's 1 unit per 5.7 acres. I don't really think that's very dense development, and that's what we're all looking for. But the main thing is on your land use study, don't spend $400,000 till you've analyzed what you've got on hand, and then let's talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's our last request to speak form. Coming back to the board, Commissioner Smith, good morning.
Sure, thank you.
Excuse me, before you begin, I apologize. I had a proclamation for an award that I did not mention, and I apologize. We have members of the public that are waiting. Forgive me. Proclamation number 1, Marine Resources Council Conservation Award. We have a remarkable staff, and we have, time and time again, individuals have received either as a department or an individual recognition from throughout the state or the country. And this morning is no different. We have Mr. Kenneth Parks, the Director of Development for the Marine Resource Council, to present one of our staff with an honor and award. Good morning, sir. I apologize for making you wait.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Martin County. I'm glad to be here from Palm Bay today. Marine Resources Council has been working to protect and restore the Indian River Lagoon since 1990, and we do that by working with leaders like you and the public. Thank you all for what you do in this county. It's amazing work. Annually for 20 years, we've presented what we call our conservation awards for outstanding service to the Indian River Lagoon, and it's my pleasure to be here today with Jim Moyer. Jim is our chairperson and also a very active person here in Martin County, as you may know. And we're here to present the 2022 MRC Conservation Award by a government employee to John Mayo. John is the John's the Ecosystem Restoration and Management Division Manager for Martin County, Florida, which you probably know. John was then unable to attend our annual celebration in November as he had to spend time with his family, as he often does, and we respect that. We brought a program for each of you, which I'll leave with you so you can see who was awarded that night. We also inducted our Hall of Fame, the Legends of the Indian River Lagoon, and several members of that Hall of Fame are from your area, including Maggie, who was mentioned earlier. Martin County, as you know, is doing some amazing work, and we know that John operates in the middle of the fray, but all the credit goes to his team, is what John tells us. He points out that the issues he and his team deal with are among the highest priorities of the Board of County Commissioners. We salute John and his team for spearheading a drive to ensure the St. Lucie River and estuary are well represented in the rewrite of the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule, resulting in an estimated 50% reduction in harmful discharges to the St. Lucie estuary. What an amazing achievement. John and his team also are continuing construction of water quality retrofits for basins that contribute to the improvement of water quality in the St. Lucie estuary and the Loxahatchee River. Martin County has finished 38 projects, he told us, and leveraged $40 million of grants, and there's more to come. Martin County manages about 35,000 acres of environmentally sensitive land, and John enjoys the challenges of all that presents. He went into state park works, as he put it, to thinking he would save bunnies. That's what he did in his previous work, and found out it's largely about cleaning toilets, is what he told us. Fortunately, John knows that keeping our environment clean can be dirty work. But if you know John, you know he's always smiling, probably smiling right now, and has great attitude. John Mal, congratulations on being recognized with the Government Employee of the Year Marine Resources Council Conservation Award for your outstanding service.
So, would you indulge me a few minutes to make this worthwhile?
I think that would be appropriate.
All right. So, first of all, I'm super grateful to Ken and Jim for taking time out of their morning to come and honor me with this. And I'm also even more grateful for the opportunity to point to my team that I get the privilege of working with to do these things. And truly, that's where the credit belongs. You all know a lot of them. Mike Houston, Zach Hughes have been down here before you several times. We've got a couple new folks, Scott Tedford, who replaced Katie Bowes, who's doing a fantastic job and brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the team. And we also have a new employee that I want to introduce, if she'd stand, Dr. Elizabeth Kelly. who's a recent hire, and she's really going to bring a lot to our program. Increase some bandwidth in some areas that we didn't have that bandwidth, and I'm really excited about what she's going to bring. She fits right into the team. I see Victoria Minner, our administrative coordinator. If I could articulate what she brings to the team, we would lose her to somebody else. So
Well, they
I'm not
should
going to
also
do that.
no compete.
She's been a remarkable addition. And we've got a couple other new folks that I was hoping could be here. They're not new to you necessarily, but they're in a new assignment. We poached Emily Dark from Coastal to start our new ecotourism position that we're doing in partnership with Narissa. And then we were able to bring on another resource employee to assist with that, Anna Grace Agnini, who you'll meet someday. Those two are going to be a dynamic duo and really do a lot for the team. And then Jay Mann, who likes to run under the radar. You all know Jay, but you would never see him in here because he wouldn't suffer it. But he makes us look good every day with what he gets done out
Mr.
at.
Donaldson, make sure he's here at the next meeting.
Sorry, Jay. I often hear that our team gets a remarkable volume of productivity done. I think Commissioner Hurd has used the phrase, "we're small but mighty." I have a secret. We do have an incredible team that is an absolute privilege and honor to work with. But the secret is the team's much bigger than those who wear the uniform. And it really starts with you guys. The 5 of you as board members elected by your constituents have rolled up your sleeves on numerous occasions in your own ways and got in the trenches with our team. You really are part of the ecosystem team, though they serve at the pleasure of the board. You guys are right in there with us on so many issues. You know our issues inside and out. You come up with great ideas. You support what we need to do to move the mission forward. The county administrator, good grief. I don't know if you know what it's like to work for somebody who knows your stuff better than you do, but it really is refreshing when it's someone like Don, and he's so helpful in moving stuff forward and getting the mission done. And to his right, our county attorney, your attorney, Commissioner. I just think about how ridiculous it is the number of times a non-regulatory division needs legal support. But pretty much everything we do would utterly fail if we didn't have this willing and capable team. I mean, things like the Manatee Pocket Southwest Prong project, if we brought that to any other general counsel, they'd say, yeah, forget it, we can't do that. Their team figures out how to get it done. So they're great partners. And I started to make a list this morning. You'll never give me the time to get through it.
You're right.
It turns out the whole county is involved in ecosystems, and the team involves pretty much every department, every division. If you're not involved with it, we haven't found you yet. So I'm super grateful to my team. I'm grateful for the opportunity to receive this award, but it's really to their credit. Thank you.
We're just going to start playing the music. Congratulations. Take a picture. Laura will help you. Our river keeper is here. Mr. Moyer, thank you. You got to be in the picture.
I just want to say to the Marine Resources Council that this had to have been the easiest decision you've made this year.
Yes. How's he not in the picture?
You're not done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Congratulations, John. Okay. I apologize to you, Commissioner Smith. We're back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a short little update. Don Donaldson and I attended the Shores and Beach Conference last week. And although most of it's incredibly technical, and sometimes you want to go to sleep watching some of it, it was really it was a day and a half, at least for me, on my time there, an overview of Ian and the subsequent hurricanes that hit Florida this year. And, I always kind of try to ask myself and whoever I'm there with, what did we learn when we walk away from one of these things, and did we learn anything? And after multiple presentations on Ian on the West Coast and all of the just horrific damage that was done to the West Coast, one thing was pretty much consistent through all the presentations by all the experts and some of the smartest people in the world doing all this stuff, is that to be able to predict and understand what a storm is going to do to you before it gets there is impossible. But from that comes the aftermath. And what's interesting about where this state is right now, and will continue to be, is at the level and the intensity at which both the state operate, but also the local governments operate in documenting what happens after the storm. The information is absolutely amazing. The technology that has happened in the last 20 years is amazing. And what that does is it certainly enables us as local government, state government as well, and agencies to think about how, if we're going to build back, do we do it better than the last time? And what's interesting as well, at least to me, is that the type of storm on the West Coast was dramatically different than the storms that went through the state and went to the East Coast. When a storm leaves the center of the state and gets into the Atlantic, it takes on an entirely different type of storm, elevations that far surpass anything that we see on the West Coast, and therefore equal the amount of damage that's done to the shoreline and to the residents and to the businesses along the shoreline. But when you look at what's documented, it's not that I don't think engineers and people in the industry don't know how to build to be able to withstand what happens. It's just that we have to apply it and apply it better than what we've done over the last 50 years. And so the damage that we saw up in Volusia County was as catastrophic in many ways as it was on the West Coast. But when you look at the armoring that was done 50 years ago or 40 years ago or even 20 years ago, it is incredibly subpar to what we know how to do today and what we do today. And so lessons learned, if Florida is to continue to have coastal, I suspect coming out of Ian, we will see legislation this year that will start to address how we build back better. But equally, during the presentation that was done by some consultants from Taylor Engineering on Martin County, we've done a really good job. And I got to say to Kathy Fitzpatrick, who has gone off into the retirement wilderness, she and many others in our engineering department really have done the very best with the technology that is available to us to prepare us and deal with the storm types of surges that we get with hurricanes, and to the success, I think, of the program, the beach program, the dune restoration program that we do here in Martin County. Our failures and our washovers were hardly really on the radar screen, all things considered. So we're doing a good job. The engineering department does an amazing job, and a lot of lessons learned from Ian and Nicole. So again, Don, thank you for all your efforts on that, and Kathy, thanks for everything you've done for the county to put us in pretty good shape. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Heatherington.
No, I'm all set this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins.
I'm set too. Thank you.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I attended the 38th Annual Everglades Conference in Fort Lauderdale. I've attended more than 20 of these annual conferences, and there's a remarkable difference between the cooperation that we see now as opposed to what we saw 20 years ago. We're really making a lot of progress with both our federal partners and our state partners, and buttressing the state's support. The governor signed an executive order also 2 weeks ago that will provide $3.5 billion for Everglades restoration funding over the next 4 years. That includes additional protections for the coral reefs. It includes land acquisition, and importantly, provides for $100 million in funding annually for the Indian River Lagoon. So those are all very promising prospects. Everglades restoration is proceeding. It's progressing well. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Donaldson. Ms. Woods. I also have nothing this morning. Move the meeting along. Our first agenda item is public hearing number 1, a public hearing on proposed Martin County TRICO settlement with Kristen Janicki versus Martin County Board of County Commissioners. It'll be presented by Ms. Breda. By our HR Director, Matthew Graham. Mr. Graham, good morning. You are recognized.
Matt Graham, HR Director. For the record, today I'm here before you to hear the case of Kristen Janicki versus Martin County BOCC. And it's just to allow the public to comment on this. There's no vote needed on this. So in accordance with the procedure for TRICO settlements established by the board, the public is provided an opportunity to comment on the proposed settlement in the case of Kristen Janicki versus Martin County. The case arose from crossing a crosswalk where the plaintiff alleged personal injury. The county is self-insured, and TRICO, which is our insurance pool, assigned counsel to the matter. Settlement discussions occurred on this case, and a proposed settlement is before the board today for public comment. Any proposed settlement of a TRICO case in excess of $5,000 must be considered and heard at the public hearing. Our attorney, Gary Dundas, believes that this settlement is in the best interest of the county as well as our TRICO board, our TRICO representative. So the recommendation today is to move that the board hold a public hearing on the TRICO settlement and allow the public an opportunity to comment on the proposed settlement. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. I see we have Ms. Elise Elder here. Anything to add?
I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Anyone from the public looking to address us on this agenda item? Seeing none, it comes back to the board. You don't need a vote, you said? We have received your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Our next agenda item is a RNP1, discussion and direction regarding proposed plans for an addition to the lease area with the Historical Society of Martin County for the Elliott Museum location on Hutchinson Island. It'll be presented this morning by Ms. Segura. 1 second, sir.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Sir, 1 second. We start with her, then with you. I know you're excited, Mr. Steele. The man of steel is here, so.
Good morning.
Ms. Segura, good morning.
Good morning, Carla Segura, Real Property Management. The Historical Society of Martin County has requested to discuss and present its proposed future uses and expansion of the Elliott Museum in Stuart. The Elliott Museum currently has a long lease with the county. In 2008, the board approved the lease for them to demolish the building that was currently on the property and build a new building in its location. They are located on the corner of Northeast Ocean Boulevard and Stewart Beach Entry Road. The building improvements have been a great asset for the county, and today we have Mr. Rob Steele, who is the president and CEO of the Historical Society, to present his proposal.
Mr. Steele, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Good
You
morning.
are now recognized.
Thanks for this opportunity to talk to you about this issue that is critically important to the mission of the Historical Society of Martin County. I'm not sure how to advance the slide.
You got to give him the mouse. Carla, should be a mouse there? Yep.
Okay. The mouse has been handed over. There we go. About 4 years ago, we adjusted our logo very purposefully. We added the Historical Society of Martin County at the very center of the chevron because we'd forgotten about our duty as the Historical Society of Martin County for a brief time. We are the umbrella under which the two museums on the island, the Elliott Museum and the House of Refuge Museum, resides, and we take our task of preserving the history of Martin County very seriously. This is an aerial photo from 1961, about the time the Elliott Museum opened on Hutchinson Island. You can see what the island looked like. We've been there for quite a long time. If you look closely at this drawing, at this picture with a magnifying glass, you can actually see Mark Perry and his brother Chris in cutoffs on the beach there in the lagoon with snorkels and masks getting ready to go in, just as kids. Nothing going on here, no Publix, no IRP, just the Elliott Museum. We've been there a good long time, tasked with our mission, and I believe we're accomplishing it at a high rate of speed now. This is the current Elliott Museum, which has been open for about 10 years now. When I arrived, I was told it's often mistaken for a building where you go to renew your dog license because we didn't have any marking on the front of the museum identifying it as a museum. Now we have this beautiful lighted sign, and we're using a few of the windows like any other museum does with their banners to indicate what's happening inside the museum. If you haven't been to the House of Refuge, we spent most of 2022 closed for outside renovations. We took advantage of that time to completely renovate all the indoor spaces, including all the bathrooms at the House of Refuge. It does a beautiful job of telling the rich history of the most iconic building in Martin County. So I encourage everyone to get out there and have a look and enjoy that as soon as you humanly can. By the numbers, I don't usually like it when someone reads everything on a chart, but these are things I'd like to elaborate on. I did this PowerPoint about a month ago and submitted it to the commission, and I said I estimate we'll have 45,000 in paid attendance in 2023 and 25,000 at all other events. I'd like to revise that second number based on what we've been experiencing in January and so far in February. I suspect we'll probably have 35,000 people at the Elliott Museum doing things other than buying a ticket to see the museum. The Elliott Museum was voted the 19th best museum in the state of Florida. You might think, why didn't you do better? You should at least be in the top 10. But remember that the Norton Museum was 23rd. We have 18,719 artifacts currently recorded in our Past Perfect database, and we have many thousands more yet to be added. We have over 100 motorized vehicle, over 900 artifacts at the House of Refuge, which is really impressive for a building that's been there since 1876. We have over 2,000 Francis Langford artifacts. The Thurlow Library Archives has over 2,000 books of local interest and thousands of irreplaceable local historical documents and media. You would be shocked to find how many inquiries we get for these records and information on an ongoing basis. People are completely interested in what happens here, particularly residents that have recently moved to Martin County. They come from the history-rich areas in the Northeast, and when they get down here, they want to know where they're living and what's happened here over time. Our new Ashley Gang exhibit has over 635 items on display. And the final point is most significant. In 2022, we had $1.1 million donated to the museum, $1 million of it in the form of an endowment to support local historic preservation efforts. What I'm trying to say here is we've run out of space. We go through and cull whatever we can from time to time and remove some artifacts that don't have that much local provenance. But we're at the point in time now where we can find no more available space. We have an 1,100 square foot off-site storage facility that we're using, but we've run out of space. The fire hall's been next door to the museum since the 1980s. It wasn't in the black and white picture I just showed you. And you have a beautiful new fire hall waiting only for, I believe, a circuit breaker box. When I heard the award given to the woman who has a career in logistics, I thought, no, don't let her leave, just grab her. Let's see if she can find us a circuit breaker box somewhere out there and cut through the red tape. So I know the building will be down soon, and we're very interested in the property as a place where we can expand and continue our mission. This is an aerial view of the spot we're talking about, showing where Stewart Beach is, Florida Oceanographic across the street, and where the proposed two-story building would stand in situ with the current fire hall building. The next slide just zooms in a little bit. In this particular slide, I want to call your attention to our garage building that houses about 15 cars that we're doing work on in the garage. If you look, you can see the two fans at the right end of that museum, and next to that is where the chillers are located. The chillers are a very efficient form of air conditioning in Florida, and ours are currently operating to take care of the garages and the Elliott Museum at about 15% of their capacity. So if we do expand and add an annex to the museum, we have more than ample air conditioning service to take care of that building, which I see as a great advantage. This next drawing, which was provided to us by Morris Crady, we really appreciate working with him and all the work he's done for the museum over the years. It shows the proposed two-story building in place and a 54-spot parking lot behind it. The building's up closer to the road, and you can see that the road to Ocean Boulevard has been eliminated in this drawing. I will tell you from my time at the Elliott Museum that parking is at a premium at Stewart Beach. There are times when we really have to be creative where we put cars. The firefighter challenge, which was such a great hit last year and coming back this year with the Worlds, just indicates further that there are things we need to do to make sure people can come and enjoy the events that we hold on the campus. And this zooms in to take a little better look at what we're talking about. The proposed building would be a 20,000 square foot building, 2 stories. I've learned enough being on the ocean for 4 years now to tell you that you don't want to put anything with metal on it very close to the ocean. So this would be primarily a concrete, hurricane-safe building with very few doors and windows and points of ingress and egress. One floor would be completely dedicated to archival efforts and additional storage, additional curation, additional restoration of artifacts. The other floor would be available for additional exhibit space, multi-purpose space, a 10,000 square foot addition. The Elliott Museum has become the barn this community dances in. As I told you just a moment ago, I estimate we'll have 35,000 people on the campus in 2023 for something other than buying a ticket. Tonight, we'll have an auto show in the parking lot. We do every Tuesday. We'll have between 300 and 400 people there. We also have a lecturer on the Norman Rockwell exhibit that'll be inside. We'll have 100 people there. And I could recant this story for almost every day on the calendar for the rest of the year. It's really busy. These pictures are from, of all places, the Auto Gallery, where we rolled out about 6 cars and brought in the Tim Reynolds Trio for a concert on December 2nd. And you can see it's a beautiful new concert venue as well. The show sold out in about 24 hours, and we had 200 people attending. Tim Reynolds didn't want to go home when the show was over. He loved playing there. He's accustomed to playing in audiences of 70,000 in an arena setting, and he real thoroughly enjoyed playing in a living room setting at the Elliott Museum. So we have many things going on. We've run out of space to do them, but we haven't run out of interest from the community in coming to the museum and supporting our historic restoration efforts. So we are pursuing an option on our lease, our 99-year lease with Martin County for the Elliott Museum property for an annex on the property immediately next door at the fire station property. And I would welcome any questions you have on this initiative.
I just had to look at him because I know this is a topic near and dear to his heart. Commissioner Smith?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot of history, as Rob pointed out, from the get-go of it being on the island in that black and white photo to where we are today. And you know, the Elliott has played a significant role both in the island history, but Martin County's history on its own. From its earliest beginnings to today, it has always played a role to host interesting people, interesting events, and quite honestly, some of the most precious historic archives of Martin County. And so, for a very long time, we knew that the fire station was going to reach its livelihood, or end of its livelihood. And what do we do with the park? What do we do with the beach? What do we do with the Elliott? How does all of that kind of come together in one sort of great component? When we redid the parking lot last 2 years ago, maybe, or so, and we did Seaside Cafe, the changes have been, I think, remarkable to add on to what the Elliott did 10 years ago when it did its site plan and built its new building. And since all of those pieces have come together, and we've added parking a couple times to the south, I guess, east of the Elliott. The firefighter challenge was another component we added out there, which was incredibly successful. And Rob and the board and the Elliott keep programmatically adding things to the list. And so it would seem probably the most appropriate thing to do with the site plan is to add it to the Elliott, to both give us additional parking, which is in the site plan drawing, but also to give them the capacity that they need to expand the programmatic side and certainly the archival side as we move towards our 100th anniversary and some other things that are going on. So I think it's a great idea. I think they've done a super job kind of doing a rough outline of what they'd like to do. We do have a new fire station. We're waiting for a Square D box, which just seems crazy that there are none in the United States. We can't get one, but at some point we will. We will power up the new fire station, and we will eventually tear down the old one. So, are we? What are you looking for a motion or to do?
The request would be to enter into a leased option, and so I think we're looking for a recommendation that we would develop the lease option and then bring that back here with the provisions in it. That's our traditional means of working with the Elliott and other museums and operators on county property. The first step is the leased option. Then once they fulfill the requirements that we've agreed to, then they enter into the full lease.
Right. So I would ask or support a motion that requests.
Or make one.
Make a motion.
Or make a motion.
He's new. He's only been here a short time.
That, that both our administrative and legal staff work on an amendment to the existing lease that would include a lease option for the additional square footage for what was the former fire station, or will be the former fire station.
I would second his motion.
Fantastic. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, several months ago, we contemplated surplusing this parcel because we were moving the fire station away, and I was adamantly opposed to surplusing it because it's island property and we have needs. This is next to the most popular beach in Martin County, and parking there is a problem every single day of the year, I think. So I need to understand more. What's the size of the parcel that Martin County owns that we're, what's the parent size of the parcel? What is the size of the parcel that the Elliott is asking for? And does the county have needs for this parcel?
I can answer it in two ways. One is the County Parks Department has looked at expanding the parking in this area. And on the illustration that Mr. Steele showed earlier was the development of a parking area that would be used by both the museum and the public. The exhibit that was shown in the presentation showed the building with the lease option would be just for that addition of the building space, as I understand it, to their overall lease. So the county owns the overall park. I can't tell you the total acreage, but it's many acres. I think what we're talking about here is thousands of square feet, not acres of additional lease area as shown on the exhibit.
Mr. Steele, do you know how much property you're going to need? You're going to need parking. Who's going to pay for that? You're going to need to lease the parcel. You're going to have to provide stormwater treatment. It's more than 10,000 square feet. It's significantly more than 10,000 feet. What is it?
That I'm uncertain of at this point in the project. That's something that would be.
Does anybody know?
So the county and the parks were just in terms of what we were already planning to do is to tear down the old fire station. Then the county itself was looking to develop that park, and we were going to, in the future, add parking and the appropriate stormwater treatment for that. The lease, I believe, that the museum is looking for would just be for the square footage of the building. And so the lease option, we would develop those issues about who does what in terms of the building requirement. I believe the parking at this point was shared space. And then the stormwater treatment volume needed for the building, we would explore that in this lease option, and then we would bring it back to you on essentially assigning who's responsible for what, and at what time does this get converted to a lease.
Our needs of the parking would be minimal. We have adequate parking in front of the Elliott Museum, and there would be no public entrances to the annex. You'd have to come through the front doors of the Elliott to get into the annex.
I certainly still have a lot of unanswered questions. I'm not opposed to pursuing this, but it needs to be a whole lot more specific than we want to expand 10,000 square feet of storage.
We were
just basically looking for direction from the board on how to move forward. If you wanted to move forward with his proposal, amending the lease. The whole property, because of different acquisitions, is the parcel across the street too. It's all one big parcel with the beach and everything. They currently lease about 4 acres, and this probably is another ½ acre to an acre at the most.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I would say this much, and thankfully, the old building is going away because it needs to go away. We are challenged out there and have been, and every little project we do to improve the program out there, we make strides, but drainage continually plagues us out there because of the elevations and because of the ocean and the pressure on the water and the hydrology that exists out there. And so we've been relatively successful with the former Indian River Plantation Marriott and working with them in the golf course. But what this will give us the opportunity, both the Parks Department and the Elliott, is to further take that corner of, if you will, the county property that exists today and further enhance and fix some of the drainage that we deal with. We have another small maintenance project that's coming on south of the parking lot, south of the Elliott as well, which will get us a few more parking spaces, but also further enhance the drainage. It's a constant challenge out there to get it right, and this will give us yet another opportunity, which part of the site as the fire station probably was never considered when it was built and done in the first place. And so whether or not the Elliott took a couple thousand square feet or not, the county would need to do parking and we would need to do drainage because it never was done, and that whole complex out there is a much larger system in terms of how it all does drain. So I would expect that when we do get back both the agreement but also our Parks Department's involvement in how all that looks, we will have a much better understanding of what we need to do to fix it.
Thank you. Commissioner Heatherington?
Mr. Donaldson clarified everything that I needed to hear, that this would all be negotiated, the drainage, the parking, the amount of space in the intent to lease, and the lease negotiations, and then that will come back to us.
That's correct.
All right, very good.
Ms. Woods?
This is probably redundant, but because I was involved in the initial negotiations when the Elliott was torn down and then rebuilt, the Elliott Museum, or the Historical Society, and the county, including the Parks Department, have a history of working together to get this infrastructure all in together. It happened before, and that's where we'll work to before. I am supremely confident that we'll be able to work it out so that we're collaborative with our neighbor.
Thank you. I see you brought a who's who of Historical Society members with you. We could open this up to the public if anyone would like to make a public comment before we get to the voting, and I offer any final comments. Anyone looking to address us at this time? It's a silent group of who's who Historical Society members. Okay, with that in mind, I'd like to just add a couple of points. One, I know that when the fire station started to, not for this, correct? Okay. When the fire station was really reaching the end of its functional lifespan, and we created another opportunity, I know that one of the original spots ideas was to redo it there, and then we found that other spot with Commissioner Smith's help out on the island, and then that property became very valuable. But I also believe that the Elliott Museum is very valuable. And I had, the honor with my wife and kids, when you showed the picture when I was reviewing the agenda and I looked back at that picture of the original facility, for whatever magical reason, my wife and my children, when they were much younger, we were there on the last day that the original structure was open. And then, of course, we made it our business to be there on the first day of the new structure being built. And when you said number 19, I was surprised, not because it's not a tremendous honor considering how many, historical facilities there must be in Florida, but that it wasn't higher because it is world-class. I mean, it is just a remarkable location, and I think for those of us that are longtime residents, your marketing and letting the residents understand all of the extras that are going on there. It's not just for visitors. It's not just for tourists. It's a remarkable asset for those of us that are here. And I was concerned because parking at the beach has always been an issue, but I was very pleased when I saw that you weren't coming up with an approach that we want it all, and we're going to build a 50,000 square foot building, and tough luck for the rest of you. I thought it was very collaborative, your plan, and I thought that 20,000, you'll eat up 20,000 square feet like it's nothing very quickly. But that being said, you know, when property is so scarce, I appreciate my colleague Commissioner Hurd's concern that the process be vetted very effectively. I have no doubt, like Ms. Woods just said, that our staff would do that. I think of the Historical Society, the Elliott Museum, the House of Refuge. We're friends and partners. It's not like you're just popping in from out of town and we should be leery of entering into a handshake type of deal with you. You're the Historical Society of Martin County, our historical society. And you do most of the heavy lifting for us. So I'm completely comfortable supporting the motion and the second. The only humble suggestion I would make, and especially in light of the fact that her passing was very recent, that somehow you can work in Alice Luckhart's name into some permanent, large-scale honor of her work, tireless efforts in our community. However you could do that, I think it would be a perfect opportunity for something grand enough for a person like Ms. Luckhart. With that, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith to have staff enter into the negotiations to allow this to happen. Just to clarify, it's not a negotiation on should this happen, it's a negotiation on making it happen. And it was seconded by Commissioner Hetherington. That being said, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion does carry unanimously. Thank you very much for all of your work. Let's take our 10:30 closed captioning break, and we will come back with departmental number 1. We'll take a 15-minute break. We'll be back at 10:45. Okay, we are back from our closed captioning break to continue our February 7th, 2023 Board of County Commissioners meeting. We are going to now pick up Departmental Number 1, Office of Management and Budget items which require board approval. There are 6 of them, and it will be presented this morning by Ms. Merrill.
Good morning. For the first, permission to apply for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, SRF, the Utilities and Solid Waste Department is requesting $12.5 million for the 10-year Connect to Protect Septic to Sewer program for 10,000 parcels to Martin County Utilities Sewer Service, in addition to potable water service for select communities within the programs. Item number 2 is similar. It's a permission to apply for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan for approximately $20 million for the Martin County's 10-year Connect to Protect Septic to Sewer, the same exact thing. We have Mr. Amerson here if you'd like to ask him any questions about that.
Hey, sometimes you got to swing for the fences.
Number 3 is permission to accept the Florida Division of Elections Help American Vote Act, or the HAVA grant. The Supervisor of Elections Office is requesting $94,888 for election security enhancements. The next one is a permission to accept funds from the Department of Health's Florida Overdose Data to Action grant. The Human Services Division has received a grant award of $67,400 for the purposes of running outreach efforts for opioid and overdose prevention education. There's no cost to Martin County to accept this grant. The 5th item is just a budget resolution to accept anticipated insurance proceeds. Engine 22 with the fire department sustained some accident damage, and we're expecting insurance proceeds in the amount of $186,622. We have to accept a budget resolution to get that into the budget so they can pay for those repairs. And the last one is a budget transfer from Utilities Fund reserves for the lead and copper rule compliance program. This is essentially to do I believe, a study for the public water systems. They're required to comply with the Safe Drinking Water Act to reduce lead and copper pipes within our drinking water systems. They're asking for $180,000, and it's available in Utilities Enterprise Fund reserves.
Move approval of Department 1.
Second.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public looking to address us on these topics? And Miss Stephanie Murley, I pronounced your last name wrong. I apologize.
Everyone does.
I was trying to put a little E on the end, but it didn't come out that way, so I apologize to you. I do know.
No problem.
I know who you
I
are.
won't get you.
Thank you. I know all of my grant requests now go right into the pail. We have a motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Murley, thank you so much. Next up is Christy Brotherton. Department number 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval, $1 million or greater, and there is one item. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Christy Brotherton, Chief Procurement Officer. We have one item for your consideration today. This is an amendment to the contract for fire rescue facility design. This is for our public safety training complex. The amount of the amendment is $457,628. Staff is recommending that the board approve amendment number 1 to REG Architects Incorporated in the amount of $457,628. Move that the board adopt the amended CIP sheet for the public safety training facility, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, what changed? Because my understanding is the design is generally about 10% of the construction costs, so we're looking at a $10 million building?
Yeah, so just to give a history, the original design was for the complete site work, a classroom building, a burn building, and the training tower. And the original design was at a location with, as it turned out, as they proceeded into about a third of the design, it was a over an unsuitable area of soils, so they had to relocate the site and proceeded with the rest of the design of the classroom building and the site work. Also, during that duration, cost increases of construction have doubled. So we have proceeded with we bid the project out for the site work and the classroom building, and we would like to concurrently proceed with the design of a burn building and a training tower with, upon reviewing with fire rescue, we discussed the life cycle of these structures and what level of services would be adequate. And we have Chief Tranchuli here to discuss level of service. So in essence, the training tower has expanded in size, and so the construction costs have gone up to upwards of $14 million for the whole facility.
Am I remembering this correctly? It seemed like when we first contemplated this, that the price was like $3.7 million, and now it's $14 million? I think we should reconsider this.
So, for the record, Chad Chanchuli, Fire Chief, Martin County Fire Rescue. I think for the general viewing public, if I can just explain the training facility to begin with, I think it would be beneficial for everybody to hear. So let me just explain today what Fire Rescue does for training. We are very dependent on where we're located. And what I mean by that is our training facility used to be located at the airport. We were in a hangar that was no longer in service. In fact, I think they were going to tear it down and rebuild something else. So we worked in there. We had our new recruits in there, current firefighters. That's how we did our training. And then eventually the hangar sold. We got kicked out of that building. And then we moved to another building that was located at the airport. And in that building, same thing. We go in there, we do our training, different environment, so we have to modify our training to fit the needs. I think that building was turned over to Inter State College. Again, we got kicked out of that building. Now, currently, we're at 76 Golf World. And that building is another site. That's where we're doing our training currently. And that's a temporary building because eventually that's going to get torn down and we're going to get kicked out of there. So my point of sharing that is first we had to establish, is there a need for a training facility? And the answer is yes. And one thing about training is you have to have that consistency of training. Consistency depends on the environment that you're training in, hence what a training facility brings. And if you look at the Treasure Coast in general, when you look at a professional fire department our size, they all have training facilities. We do not. So let me explain the 3 phases of the training site. So phase 1, which is happening right now, is the classroom facility. And it's just that. It's a simple, small building, 2 classrooms, and that's both for medical and fire. It's where we bring our people in, new recruits, current employees, and that's where we train them on whatever the training is for the day, and that's where they actually get the educational talk points, and then we transition to the application of hands-on, which is what the training site would provide for them when they move outdoors. Phase 2, now that one's supposed to be finished by October, so that's phase 1. Phase 2 is the burn building that they were talking about, George was talking about. That is designed for residential firefighting. We are roughly 90% in completion with the design of the burn building. When the training room is done by October, we should start the training building, which is the 2-story residential for our training here, which suits the needs of Martin County Fire Rescue and the needs of the community. So this was all in design back in 2019. And if you look at just basic costs from 2019 of construction to today, it is astronomical, the amount. And it is something that's alarming, but it's a reality of what we're dealing with. And unfortunately, we're in that position that we have to deal with it. The training tower, when they had the design in 2019, our administration came in, the current administration that is serving Martin County Fire Rescue, we came in 2 years after that. And what we realized is in the design concept of phase 3, that training tower, it was completely missed the mark. It was the wrong type of facility to serve the needs of Martin County. And what I mean by that is the burn building that I told you, which is going to be in October, is residential. It serves the needs of all residential firefighting that we have to do. It will meet those objectives. What we have not talked about is commercial, industrial, and multifamily living. And if you just drive through the county, you can see the apartment buildings are out there, the condos that we have out there. on the island, and then you can look at the industry we have out west. And we have no training facility to train for that. Those types of incidents are called low frequency, high risk. The only way you get the level of standard up to perform correctly is to have the appropriate tower. So we're in the process of what we recognize is that tower did not meet those needs. So we're reevaluating how to design that tower to meet the current needs of the community and to meet the needs of Martin County Fire Rescue. And the most important, I think, component that you can take away from this with a training site is it needs to mimic the hazard classifications within the county. We have the residential component, it's dialed in. We do not have the industrial, commercial, and multifamily. That's what that training tower is all about.
I don't know how you go from $3.5 million to $14 million in 2 years. I just don't.
So our original debt service allocation was $8 million for the project. That was to build 3 facilities. We have the funds to construct the burn building. That is of need. Phase 2, as the Chief Chanchuli mentioned, we would not have the remaining balance. We would not have enough to build a suitable training tower facility for Phase 3. So we reanalyzed Phase 3 and the need, the long-term need, and that was the basis for staff to request of the board to ask for a legislative appropriation. So we have prepared an application for the balance of funds of $6 million.
And the debt service is going to be repaid how?
Sorry, the debt service is being paid with fees and MSTU, fire MSTU funds. That was already been
ad
dedicated.
valorem.
Yes. And that's already committed, so that's been done. So the request, and what we're following up on, is to construct a tower that serves the needs of Martin County, not just for immediate, but long into the future. That this is, we're looking for an appropriation, and would move forward with that when we get the appropriation. We think we have a good chance of getting appropriation for this safety element. And I think the design of the tower that the chief and his staff have outlined is a excellent facility. What was in there before was, I think, termed barely adequate, and would be not met the needs for any long-term solution.
How did we, so the site was unsuitable and the building was unsuitable? And yet, how do we get there? How do you get, with an unsuitable site and an unsuitable design, how do you get to appropriating and borrowing $8.8 million? How can you make those two big mistakes?
Just to say, the site was, we have an excellent site. It's just that the original footprint, there was unsuitable soils in one location, one that we had used in the past for the Willoughby Creek dredging project, the materials left over, and plus where it was placed, it was of sufficient depth to excavate it and remove it would have added significant costs. So they simply moved it. At the time, there was looking at pilings, and it went through quite a process initially to see if the original design could stay where there was. The geotech just simply made it, it was unsuitable, so simply relocated. So the overall site is appropriate. It is a great location for this training facility on the airport. All the access road has been completed. The classroom facilities are under construction. The burn building is all within the budget, so it really comes down to the tower and the fact that this design costs really include other changes that had already occurred in addition to the revised burn building.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Smith.
So I think it's also important to remember how I think we got here in the first place. What led us to make the decision to build our own facility was the fact that we were going out of county, 2 counties away, I think, and taking units out of service, which was incurring overtime and really causing a little bit of chaos in the system, as well as, and I forget if they're ISO ratings or if they're another standard, that by having your training facility in county versus out of county also raised our level of criteria for that. Was it ISO?
ISO.
ISO. And that led us to say, okay, can we do our own facility? Can we do it in county? And can we do it to meet the needs of our community to the best that we can? And that's where we are. And unfortunately, time has passed and costs have passed, which always just probably aggravates everybody, including us up here. But nonetheless, having that facility is important, and it means a whole lot more efficiency and a whole lot more streamlined as to what we do in our ratings. So with that, I would move staff's recommendation of approval.
Second.
A couple of things. Mr. Zama, can you mention your name and title for the record, please?
George Zama, Public Works Deputy Director.
Thank you. Couple of points. Would you like to go first, Commissioner Jenkins?
Something just occurred to me that I wanted to say, but I don't need to say it right this second if you don't want me to.
Is it about fire rescue?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So one thing you didn't mention that I remember in the conversation prior is the ability to actually earn some income from some outside training of counties that don't have a facility that is quite as productive as ours. Is that still the case?
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. We can host, there's numerous classes that we're to host that we can offset revenues as far as what our expenses are.
Okay, I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't disagree with Commissioner Hurd's concern that the project went from a smaller price tag to a much larger price tag. But that being said, that's what's happening everywhere for every one of us, whatever you're doing, whether it's the government building this facility, residents building homes, businesses, and I don't know, I mean, it's alarming and it's disappointing, but I'm not personally going to put that on this particular project because it's not like you missed the ball or anything like that. It was a situation. And then, so for me, so I get the concern, but I can rationalize it that it's a global issue and we're just being, in this particular case, a victim of it. That being said, I still believe, and I say it repeatedly, that our residents expect the first dollar of their taxes to always go towards public safety. And the protection of our residents and our fire rescue personnel has to be job number one. I remember the years, and some people that are hearing this for the first time will think this is insane and why are we doing this? But Commissioner Smith's point, Commissioner Jenkins' point that we used to take our equipment and drive all the way to Indian River County. They had a facility. Most of our communities nearby do. But not just counties. There's a lot of municipalities, even here in Martin County, that have fire rescue. And for me, when your life as the fire rescue personnel is on the line, but so are the residents and everybody else. So to send, whenever we have a ribbon cutting or we discuss or meet at graduations or promotional ceremonies, I say it is our responsibility. I feel, and I believe all of my colleagues would agree, that we have the best staff that is properly trained, properly equipped, has the modern safety equipment, trucks, facilities to live in. That's what our residents expect, whether they live somewhere else, excuse me, whether they live somewhere else or have lived here their whole lives, that's what they expect. So I go back to, and I can't remember what his name is, you had a fire rescue member that was responding to, we don't have a tremendous amount of residential fires, but when we do, we had a member of the fire rescue team, your fire rescue team, that was severely injured. Do you want to say his name or we don't say his name out? We won't say his name, but tell me the story.
So it was actually turned out to be an arson fire is what it was. And they were caught into a position, second floor, and they ended up getting steamed. And unfortunately, there's a lot of different factors that go into that. But one of the factors that goes into preventing you from being in that situation is to be able to read the room, read the environment, react to the environment you're in, and it would make you change your plan of action. Unfortunately, that didn't take place. And where you learn things like that is in live fire training is when you can go so far and when there's a point of no return and when to turn back. So unfortunately, when you don't have training, you can result into things like that. And that's the whole point of why we train as hard as we train. So one, our firefighters are always, suited to their best of their abilities to serve the community. And two, is it'll change how we actually make our ingress and egress into residential homes, multifamily homes, and it's going to be better outcomes for the community because it will give us a whole different strategy and tactic to employ. That comes with training. That's not on-the-job training.
Agreed. And the injuries that he sustained were catastrophic, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Career-ending.
It was career-ending. Years later, he did get back, in my understanding, to a department down south in fire prevention area. I'm not sure if he's back on the street or not. I'm really lost touch with it.
I appreciate that. I just remember that, and, as the people that are responsible for budgeting and approving the dollars that go towards what you need to accomplish, I just think that I couldn't, with a straight face, look at any of your personnel or their family members, or our residents, my own neighbors. Everyone, including myself, assume that you guys are completely trained exactly to the level that you're supposed to. And if we can create a scenario that makes that easier here, I mean, yeah, $14 million sounds like a tremendous amount of money, but what's the life expectancy of a facility like this?
That's a 20, 30-year project we're talking. That's why we're trying to build the correct tower.
Right. I would be disappointed in you if you found out that the portion of the location was inappropriate, but you either overspent to correct it, to keep the building there, or you didn't move it. I would be disappointed as you coming in as the new chief and a new sort of administrative e-board or the administration to come in and look at the original plan that was crafted probably by someone else and know that it wasn't going to be on day one the appropriate facility and just be like, well, I guess we'll just leave it alone. I would have been disappointed for you to do that. And my last comment is, this is not some Taj Mahal training. There has got to be some standardized design requirements that are necessary statewide, nationally, that you're following along with. There's got to be certain things that have to appear in this facility. It's not like you've made a grand training palace. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Just one follow-up, Mr. Chairman, and it's just a follow-up to your earlier comments. As much as this conversation is about the cost of a facility, it is wholly 100% about the staff that will occupy it and that will train and that will be required to answer the call when it's done. And, John Mayall's thing this morning, the recognition of that department and all of our departments that do the amazing work for this county that they do. Fire rescue is one of those departments, and having a facility that puts our staff in the safest, best possible condition that we can put them in, like you said, it's your first dollar or first $2 or how many ever dollars you want to associate with that, because our staff are certainly the ones that are the most important element of this whole entire conversation.
Commissioner Heatherington?
What kind of timeline do you anticipate? So with the change in design, when would the design be complete? And then assuming we get our appropriations, what kind of timeline are we looking at until we could put shovels in the ground for this?
So the basis for presenting today was to commence the design so we can hopefully be complete by the end of the construction of Phase 1, the site work for the whole facility and the classroom. And then we can start the burn building construction immediately after the classroom is finished. And we can also state with our legislative appropriation requests that it will be shovel-ready. So we're looking to complete the design for everything and have it.
I think it's super important that we stay on the timeline so that we can say that for the appropriations.
So to directly answer your question, we're looking to complete design by October of this year.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments from my colleagues? Anyone from the public looking to address us on this topic? Now's your chance. That being said, I know with Mr. Resch on the job, he'll find money. And look, just my final point, Chief, you're not happy that it's a $14 million price tag at this point, are you?
No, not at all.
But it still needs to be built, correct?
Correct, it does.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is departmental number 3, Western Land Planning Study. It'll be presented this morning by Mr. Clyde Doolin and Mr. Paul Schilling and Miss Elise Elders. Gentlemen, Miss, welcome. You are recognized.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Clyde Doolin, for the record.
Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director, for the record.
As you may remember, on September 13, the board had a discussion about possibly doing a study of the western lands of Martin County. And at that time, the board directed staff to come back with an item to discuss this further. And so here we are today. As the issues portion of this agenda item goes into some recommended possible ways in which a planning study could be approached. And we seek direction, if you want to do one, on what the scope of the RFP would include. The recommended action is direct staff on areas of focus in a Western Lands Planning Study. The alternative recommendation is to direct staff not to go forward with a Western Lands Planning Study. The issues, in the issues portion, we talk about the possibility of having 4 component parts if you want to do a study. Public input through a series of community planning meetings, analysis of the publicly owned land, privately owned land, et cetera, in western Martin County, and options for fee simple and less than fee simple open space preservation and agricultural easements, conservation subdivisions, or other methods to do preservation of large areas, and generate at the minimum a report on recommendations for a sustainable vision for a long-term future. There are a number of programs and plans in western Martin County that have already been, that are already out there going on. The SERP, the Loxahatchee River Watershed Restoration Project, the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection Program, and of course, there's the ongoing need for purchase of Palomar lands and supporting the Loxalucy Headwaters Initiative. So with that, I will stop and be happy to answer any questions that the board has on this subject.
Thank you, Mr. Doolin. We'll start with a comment by Mr. Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add 2 things. So the two things that we're looking for is just direction on the overall scope of work. And the other is that we've had some discussions about how you would procure the consultants that would help you with that. And there was 2 tracks. So one, you do the traditional request for qualifications that was done in the past for various planning groups. And the other is that we've used the Regional Planning Council, which doesn't necessarily need the RFQ process. And that is actually our preference would be, I think they're in terms of an organization that's assisted us with planning along with staff, is the option. So so in your consideration for this, there's again the 2 pieces. Is the one is this just a general of how detailed of a study do we want to go into this? Certainly, there's the requirement to have public input and charrettes and that sort of thing. And in terms of the scope, it could be focused more primarily on the environmental lands and perhaps the agricultural issues, or it's more in-depth as, for instance, the 2020 plan, which was getting into how you do deal with urban boundary expansions in the future, as the state law has asked us to consider, and that's a more comprehensive, I guess, look at it in terms of the 2 ends of the spectrum, if you will, in a planning study of this nature. And then the second component that I said is, this is a scope of a project that is greater than staff could do in-house. And in that assistance, we're suggesting that we would partner with the Regional Planning Council as our initial thoughts, although we're open to any direction the board has. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Jenkins.
So this has turned into the third rail, in my mind, just reading emails and and one of the things is if we would have presented this agenda item with a different name, and we seem to do this all the time, that let's say it was called the Preservation and Protection of Environmentally Sensitive and Agricultural Land Study. We wouldn't have got anything negative. And that's really kind of part of what we're trying to accomplish here, is identifying opportunities, identifying lands that are not part of SERP, that are not part of maybe a national or federal importance, but are vitally important to Martin County and the Loxahatchee River in particular, talking about Palmar and some of the things that are not part of it. So what I'm not interested in is doing a study that costs us a lot of money that is shelved, like apparently, listening to Mr. Hartman this morning, has happened in the past. And maybe what he suggested isn't a bad idea, is that we take what we have, analyze it, and maybe, let's admit it, that no matter what we do, there is critics that are going to be critical of whatever we do. So let's maybe partner with 1,000 friends, and 1,000 friends take those studies that we've done in the past, analyze what we have, the data that we have, and then create if needed at that point, a scope of work for an outside consultant that could be facilitated by 1,000 friends. I'm throwing that out there. Turning it into, we all recognize that we should do it. Everybody has an opinion on how to do it and are very concerned on bias with whoever's doing it, right? So I think we ought to start with what we've got. Right.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Heatherington?
I actually would agree with a lot of that, and I was very adamant. And I think on having some kind of longer-term planning discussions, we're not going to have the perfect plan, and certainly people are not, we're not going to get 100% buy-in on this. And but we have to have the discussion. And Mr. Hartman did mention before that there are a couple plans sitting on the shelf. I don't know what's in the 2007 or the other study he referenced. I do believe that would be part of the process, is to take those and see if there are things in there that could be implemented. Number one, I'll tell you from this process over the last year, is the general resident does not understand. There are a lot of new residents of Martin County. They don't understand what is and what is not allowed in Martin County. They don't understand what we have preserved and maybe some of the priorities and the reason we need to conserve and preserve more land. So if we're going to start with something, you're going to start with outreach and education so people understand why is it necessary for us to preserve. And I suspect that we will have some kind of land acquisition effort in the future, and it's going to be important for people, particularly new residents, to understand what we have in ownership, what we need, why is it important that we have, Palmar or these other particular very environmentally sensitive pieces. And people don't understand the fact that they can go today on the very edges of Lake Okeechobee in Martin County and start putting shovels in the ground and develop. If it's 20-acre ranchettes, it's 20-acre ranchettes. They can start developing. I don't believe, in my mind, that's the best environmental strategy. It's probably not going to be best for the taxpayers because we have to service that area. So we need to we need our residents to understand what's possible, what's not possible, things that we cannot prevent, and maybe how to incentivize some better environmental development. So identifying opportunities and weaknesses or something, and maybe some of these other studies have already done that and can be incorporated. Outreach, I think, community input is key, whether that's done with, 1,000 Friends or Treasure Coast Regional Planning. It certainly is out of the realm of what staff can undertake. It has to be done by, I think, an third party. But that's going to be the most important is outreach, I believe.
Agreed.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. More?
May I, one more?
He's yielding back.
Sorry, I just forgot, because when I first started reading these emails about this 400,000, I thought, where is that coming from? And then I see that it was in the agenda item. I'm guessing that someone had to put a number on it, and it was a number that was just put in the agenda item, so it's not necessarily a $400,000 study. Depending on what you come up with these other things to analyze, it could be 100,000, 50,000, it could be any number, but that was a number I'm assuming staff just put on there.
Yes, Commissioner Heatherington, if I may, that is a number that was plugged in based on experiences. That number could be even more, or it could be less.
Right.
But that's a realistic range of what we're talking about, depending on the complexity.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
I thought it was interesting that Rick came this morning and shared with us the 2020 plan. I had the privilege of serving on that committee, I think, back in 1998 or whenever that was actually done. I can remember Mike Dieter, Lizzie, and I sitting at the table one day. It was when I first met Mike years ago. And we had this idea that when we were doing charrettes and all these things were being drawn on the map, what if we could acquire an enormous green belt from the northern part of the county to the southern part of the county and sort of isolate off the ability to keep moving the boundary and do that. And so when he said that this morning, and what he said this morning kind of triggered a thought that I know what's in that plan. I worked on it. I still have copies of it in my office from 20 years ago. I think what would be interesting to sort of audit, if you will, is what have we accomplished in those 20 years since the inception of the plan? If you look at the green, I think there were 3 or 4 visions or potential outcomes of what could happen in Martin County in that big fold-open pictorial that we had. And one of the options was to acquire a fairly large green belt north to south. Well, with the acquisition of Allapattah and C-44, and then all the acquisitions we did down south in Harold's district,
Which is everywhere.
with the exception really of acquiring all the remainder of Palmar, most of that green belt has been acquired. And most of that vision has been achieved. But I think what would be healthy is to at least pull out those studies, look at them, kind of audit, like, how have we done? Did we actually achieve what we set out to do? They may have gone on the shelf, but the work product really never left the idea of what everybody wanted to accomplish. And so just, I think, to satisfy ourselves that, to Commissioner Heatherington's point, so many people have moved here since that work was done, 20 years ago. They have no clue that that thing even existed. They have no clue that we acquired all of that land in that period of time to Culpeper and other things down south. And so at the very least, I would love to see us pull that back out, review it, and kind of do a checks and balance, like, how did we do? Did we achieve 50% of it? Did we achieve 70% of it? Because then I think you could take that and say, okay, let's say we didn't accomplish 100%, but let's say we did 50%. What would be required to do the additional 50? I have, and have had in my priorities for the last couple of years, land acquisition. I think others had it this year and maybe last year. I think there is still an appetite for more land acquisition. I think there is an appetite for 3 kind of components of that. How do we continue to do more water quality? How do we continue to get more environmentally sensitive land that can be added to what we already have acquired? And how does that relate to the ag lands that may or may not be adjacent to it, and how do those pieces come together? So, Harold, I agree with you. I think having a third party do this, I think, because there'll be people that will weigh in and from different perspectives, I would prefer to go with the Regional Planning Council as a neutral body, but for them to bring in Thousand Friends of Florida or others that will have their own kind of opinion of how they see what we've done and what might need to be left to be done. Because I think that way you get a pretty objective kind of input for us at the end of the day, hopefully to make some policy recommendations to move into the future. So,
As an audit, as part of the audit
yeah, as part of
committee
it,
or whatever.
as
you're
part
gonna-
of like, what would be great is if you had like a regional planning council being the lead, but you had 3 or 4 different entities, if you will, doing kind of their own analysis, their own lens. And from that, you'll probably get some pretty good conversation as to what yet needs to be done and what could we do. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
I like that.
Okay, I'll jump in, and then we have one request to speak form. I have also seen the emails. I've had I remember when Commissioner Hetherington brought this up in the fall that said, we really can't just be shooting from the hip. We have to have a little more of a plan. Commissioner Hurd and Commissioner Smith have the advantage of having been here through some of the other historical approaches. I'm always personally fearful of consultant reports, and there was one this morning about the Fitch report, which was for fire rescue, and I was not part of that. But when these are made to make people feel better and to give some kind of a vision, and then they literally are put on a shelf, like the binder is put on a shelf. Because most often, and the same case with the fire rescue one, is there's 2 sides, and there's always 2 sides to each of these debates, but in Martin County, they are very pronounced and very vocal, both sides. And when I try to share with other commissioners at events or people that I know from outside of this area, when you're trying to explain Martin County, we start off by saying we have a 4-story height limit and we have a lot of environmentally appropriate rules and regulations that make Martin County different than some other places. And then we talk about how we have a real appetite, and, again, to Commissioner Hurd and Commissioner Smith's credit, a lot of the bulk purchases of environmentally sensitive land happened before Jenkins, Hetherington, and Campy got here. And there was like a real drive for it, that back then the citizenry was willing to tax themselves, understanding full well that thousands of acres would be purchased for environmental conservation. Sometimes would have some passive recreation uses. Quite often it doesn't. But we still did it. I think I was very enthusiastic when the sort of public-private initiative of the Loxalucy headwaters came forward. Group of very well-heeled and knowledgeable residents said, look, we will partner, but we're going to take this on. And they've already started to have some initial success, but they're not going to be able to do it by themselves either. So to me, a study, if it's going to have any possibility of success, and success to me is defined by where both sides can look at it and say, we gave some and we took some, and it is something that we can use as sort of a guide to move forward. I think that's almost a Herculean effort for whoever we hire to do that, including participation of our staff and private groups. When I heard about the study, I don't think of it as a study of where we should necessarily be building out west. I think of it more so as a study of where we should not be building out west. Where should we be conserving, purchasing, and protecting environmentally sensitive lands that are strategically located? To Commissioner Smith's point, if you're trying to create sort of a beltway to keep everything on one side or the other, so be it. I know that some residents are concerned when they hear about a study They think it means that we are trying to plan how we will develop out west, not how we will protect out west. And some of that's just going to be lobbying and marketing. And I always say it's much easier to scare people than it is to reassure them. So for one side, if your effort is to do nothing here in Martin County, not just today, but well into the future, it's easier to get people riled up about that. So the other concern for me is the fact that, and one of our speakers, who's very knowledgeable this morning and very well known, said we shouldn't be thinking about this sprawl and out west until we are done building and infilling. But we're about to have some agenda items come in the next couple of meetings with infill projects. City of Stewart has been basically in a knockdown, drag-out battle between their staff, their elected officials, and members of their community about infill. Now, the City of Stewart has no choice but to do infill. They're all infill. But now it's tipped over back to the county, unincorporated areas of Martin County, where residents will come here very soon and be furious that we are doing that strategy of infilling. So for me, and I'm sure my colleagues, when you're trying to balance out property rights, people that own property that have legal recourse to build what they want on their property, and the neighbors that are near them that like it being tree-lined or untouched, that's going to be a challenge for us. It's been a challenge for as far as I'm concerned, and I know that you guys get a lot of knocks and slings and arrows, but I think we have a very strong professional staff. But if people disagree with you, then they think you're idiots. And so there's nothing you can do about that, I know that it's also difficult to hire people to come in and fill vacancies in your position. I spoke to someone who was here and then left and said, no, thank you. And so, short of handing out bulletproof vests before you come to agenda items, I don't know what we're supposed to do. But back to the planning. There were emails that said, hey, it can't be any local organizations, any local professionals. It should be this group of local interested parties, knowledgeable parties that are also locals. I think if we were to go down that route, which we've tried to do even when we were in the run-up, in the lead-up to rural lifestyles, it's just too challenging. I'm sure there must be Florida-based organizations that can handle this. I don't think we need to have someone come from Maryland or Virginia to handle this. So I think, in my mind, this is just my criteria, that it would have to be someone based in the state of Florida that can come and give us the appearance, if not the full fact, of being neutral and unbiased. Any of our local organizations on one side of the issue or the other can participate, obviously, but I can't imagine that they could be the ones leading the charge. And then, if that were the case, from the very beginning, the other side will say it's a farce. Benjamin Franklin said that by failing to plan, you are planning to fail. I had not had anyone demanding that we do a Western land study. I know that, being inside baseball, it's an important strategy, not for today as far as I'm concerned, but it can give sort of a future of what, Commissioner Smith's talking about something that's 20 years old, and it would be interesting exercise to go back and look at that and say, how'd we do? Like audit that plan 20 years later. But if the decision is like, do we need to do this planning because we're going to be doing things within the next 12 to 18 months? I don't personally think so. But that doesn't stop any landowner from showing up to say, I'm ready to push the activate button on my long-time held property. So in conclusion, I think whoever we decide to sort of, and I don't think it should be our staff, you're busy doing 100 other things that we expect of you and our residents expect of you. So this is more of a process. So it would have to be an outsider. I prefer it to be someone who is not affiliated so closely and directly with Martin County on either side. I also believe that firm, unless it's really a remarkable firm, would almost have to be two portions. The people that are going to take all of the information and then boil it down and create things that we can genuinely use with LDRs and planning and future land use and all that. But then the other half of that organization, or a separate organization, would have to facilitate a robust and genuine public participation. And I don't know if firms have that in-house two-pronged approach, but if the public feels excluded, any member of the public, pro-development, anti-development, if they feel excluded or that somehow they're entering an event that is rigged, we've lost all the money we're going to spend on this. The downside of bringing in a bunch of separate organizations would be, it'll be way more than $400,000. We'll start with Commissioner Heatherington.
Two things. I think that Commissioner Jenkins hit it right on the head when he started out with the planning, with the title, but the title is a title that somebody put on it. I think of it as a long-term strategy. Two, Commissioner Smith talked about what if that Greenbelt study, what if 50% or 70%, what if 70% of it had been achieved? Then waiting another 5 to 10 years. So that's what I view as what needs to be accomplished. Nothing planning in the 12 to 18-month realm. If 70% of those objectives were achieved in the last 20 years, then what's next? What are the next objectives? We have to keep looking, if 70%, I doubt that's the case, but hopefully if 70% is achieved, then are we going to wait until 100% is there before we start looking down the road of what should we do next? Now's the time to have that conversation to say, okay, this is what we want to see in the next 20 years. And, there's potentially, a green belt here or these lands are identified to preserve and conserve. And we have to have the conversation now or, we'll have finished that and not have a plan to continue. I think the most important thing is going to be the engagement. I kind of struggle here. It's hard to get people from out of the area to do the engagement. One thing I thought on the CRAs, the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council did a good job of facilitating the engagement within the various communities. That, I thought they did a great job of just taking the information. Whether they do the audit, they did do a nice job of facilitating that. And I think every group that was mentioned has to be involved in some way or the other. It's just a matter of who's going to facilitate it. Staff can't do it. You're too busy. And someone has to facilitate the engagement, put it all in a document, and bring it back.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Smith.
I think Harold had the perfect title for what it should be. I think Ed had the perfect opening statement, which I wish I could have written it down fast enough to keep up with what he was saying. So I don't know how good your photographic memory is, Ed. But I think what everybody's saying, at least what I'm hearing, is that we'd like to take what's been done, rehash through it. Let's see what we were successful, what we weren't successful in. What comes of that, and what, it would sort of like being said, okay, if you had a 20-year plan and you're at your 20-year mark, every plan should probably have what's the next 20 years. We just had this conversation at the 16 County Coalition. It's like we've reached a certain level at SERP that now we're starting to think, what does the next 20 years of SERP look like? And how do we start embedding that into our priorities and what we're trying to achieve with the 16 County Coalition? And I see this sort of as the same thing. And so I agree with Commissioner Heatherington's, the outreach is the absolute most important part. I think the Regional Planning Council is exceptional at doing that. There will be people that will come to the table just by nature of what the study is about, because there's interest at all levels. And hopefully in a reasonable amount of time, they can come back with a plan that lays out, here's the next 20 years of strategy of what you might want to achieve. And I'm much more driven in this conversation by what we tried to lay out and achieve in the 2020 plan than I am any other conversation. And so, again, I thank Rick for coming and having that conversation, because it just kind of got me thinking like, gee, he's spot on. So I would make a motion that we ask staff to engage with the Regional Planning Council to put together a work product that looks at our last 20 years. What have we achieved? Where are we in that 20-year plan? And where does that fit? Where would the next 20 years fit relative to water quality, preservation, open space, conservation, all of the things we just talked about, and produce for us the next map, footprint, if you will, of what we can work on, what we can focus on, specifically for me anyway, at least in the land acquisition strategy, that it would give us a real good direction for doing so.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
I agree. Unfortunately, there's some folks in our community that feel the Treasure Coast Regional Planning is not, they are one-sided. I think that is a false statement. But I would insist that we direct Treasure Coast to work directly with 1,000 Friends on an equal footing. So we have their input, so they are part of the process.
Well, I have no problem with that whatsoever. And honestly, you know, when Dana would do his presentations on the CRA, I think there were 120 or 30 different presentations. They met with everybody. And that is part of their DNA. They don't exclude anybody that wants to talk to them, wants to interview them. And I think that's the brilliance of what they do. And I would fully expect that would be one of their first phone calls, to partner up with them and make sure that they are there every step of the way. I have no problem with that.
Good. Can you amend your motion to include that somehow?
Sure. That the Regional Planning Council be required to engage at a, what would you call, at a, in an agreement with the with the 1,000 Friends of Florida to be a partner in the process.
Second.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, did the Regional Planning Council support rural lifestyle?
The Regional Planning Council did make comments on the plan amendments, as do all state agencies. Yes, they did have favorable comments about the Rural Lifestyle Future Land Use Map Amendment and text amendment.
Then they're not neutral. So,
That's why we just said 1,000.
they're not neutral. Regional Planning Council is going to rubber stamp whatever 3 commissioners want to do. And we're looking, it sounds to me like the subtext of this is that we're looking for a scapegoat to figure out where we're going to expand urban development in rural lands. Most Martin County residents and I feel strongly that the appropriate land uses outside the primary urban service boundary, if there's still capacity in the urban service boundary, which there is, then what is appropriate outside of it is what's allowed now, which is agriculture and conservation lands.
So no.
We have a plan. And until we need to create additional capacity, urban capacity, then the plan that we have now, the tried and true plan, is the one that's appropriate for Martin County. You're just looking to push urban, you're looking to find a way to push urban development into western lands. I, on the other hand, am in favor of supporting our residents who value conservation and the environment over putting urban development where it's inappropriate, far from the urban service boundary, putting those urban services in remote locations. That's not appropriate. That's not planning. That's reacting to the market.
You want to wait?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Jenkins?
So this is a prime example of how something that needs to be done is being politicized. And it's unfortunate. That's just why immediately came out of the gate with 1,000 friends. They either explained to us with a straight face why no planning is good planning, okay? Or they actually do the exercise that we've asked, which they tout as their profession, that they're the growth management, environmental sensitive group that was put together by Mr. Reed. They can do it. They produce it. And you know what? If they come back to us and say this is not necessary at this point, okay, I'll accept that. Or they come up with a study that says we need to put high value, because I'm going to go back to my original point of my thing, is identifying, which you are completely for, properties like the Canopus piece. And, you know, it's not on anybody's radar, but I keep hearing it's one of the most valuable pieces of property to the headwaters to the Loxahatchee River. It's on nobody's radar for acquisition. None. I would like this study to identify that so the people in Martin County can understand the importance of that, that if we do decide that we want to do a sales tax to acquire land, we have some data to show them, right? And how important is Palomar, right? So this study is going to turn into a political football, you know, and it'll be right at its climax, right during their next election. I kind of think it's necessary, but if we're going to politicize it, I say can the whole thing right today. So there's that.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I don't think I could have said that better. The point is to have a long-term vision, and no planning is not good planning. I think if you're going to politicize it and try to, you know, say that people are trying to open up, I think that's exactly the opposite of what I saw in all of our priorities listed that we discussed, a couple weeks ago. I think that's the opposite of what we're hearing from the community, and there has to be a long-term strategy to do it. The property you just mentioned, I'm not familiar with it, but how would we ever have a land acquisition strategy if that's not part of the conversation? And to me, I don't care if, you know, who does it. Someone has to facilitate the conversation. Somebody has to go into each part of Martin County and start having the conversation. They have to lay all this on the table, and it has to be somebody that has the ability to facilitate the conversation, whether it's 1,000 Friends of Florida, if they analyze it, someone else engages people. Can they facilitate it in the community? Do they have the resources?
That's their function.
To put that together, charrettes in the community?
Yes.
To me, I don't care what the name of the entity doing it. You need someone that actually goes in and gets the input and brings it back.
We have one request to speak from Mr. Anthony Zanino. Sir, good morning and welcome.
Morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I speak as a board member of the Guardians of Martin County, and I'm just here to support this item to engage a consultant to conduct a planning study of the Western Lands. As you may be aware, since the introduction of the Rural Lifestyle Amendment, the Guardians have been in favor of a study of the lands outside the urban service boundaries to determine the environmental sensitivities as well as the best possible uses for these lands. We believe this study should be the basis for future planning, and that it be open as much as possible to public participation. I also think that the issue that I've heard you all talk about, it's a lot about education of the public as to what the needs of this county are in the future, and I think that should be part of the study. We also feel it's an opportunity for some creative collaboration, and the Guardians would be happy to participate in any way the commission feel might be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. If I might jump back in based on hearing this round of conversation from my colleagues, I think this is a perfect little dichotomy of exactly what will happen just on a much larger scale with our residents. Sides will be drawn if they're not drawn already. Residents either will have a very strong opinion, and I think a majority of people are, the stronger majority will be, we don't want anything to happen in the urban service boundary, outside of the urban service boundary. They don't want it. You know, they're not necessarily tuned into Bert Harris and property rights and things like that. I have people asking me to do things and to not do things, all of them. And these are smart people that are well-meaning, but there's no possible way that we could do or not do what people are asking. Just like, it's just run like that it's the communist country where we can just do whatever we want or stop people from doing whatever we want. That's not the case. That being said, just, you know, I believe that the five of us have been getting along and working very collegially for quite a while. I've had, I don't know about the rest of you, but I have a lot of people compliment me on this is a very effective and efficient board and that there's a proper balance here. There's strong personalities, but we've been getting along. And I just, in the last 15 or 20 minutes, started to see some of that slipping. I don't want to volunteer to jump in holding hands with my colleagues into a wood chipper. I'm not interested at this point in continuing. I think from my perspective, I get that. I think from my perspective, the next conversation or public outreach should be an additional conversation about an item on the ballot to see if there's an appetite for sales tax to purchase conservation lands. I think, like I said originally, Loxalucy and others have made a compelling argument. I've heard from enough residents. I was always opposed to those, primarily because I don't think the citizens want it. But I have been reaching out and hearing, especially after the rural lifestyle, it sort of woke up a quiet, normally not involved population to give their opinions. I think that if that's presented in an appropriate manner, whether it's Palomar or Canopus or these other areas, that could be the next green belt idea that Commissioner Smith was mentioning. If you know, part of that community outreach and information process could be, look, this is the study from 20 years ago, and this is the success we had. And we need to do it again. We need a 2.0 version or a phase 2 version of it. This Western Land Study is going to divide a wedge not only in our commission, but in our community. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, any vote that brings something like that this morning, I know we have a motion in a second currently.
I'm going to withdraw my second.
I'm out, because I don't think we need to be punching ourselves in the face and forcing our residents to argue with each other. Yes, do we need to plan? Of course. I don't think that's a debatable point. But how we would plan, where we would plan, who gets to facilitate the planning, we're not going to get there. And so why we would start something here today that will just trickle out into a community that's divided on many other options. Like I said, no one asked me that this was a desperate requirement. I get the planning side, but until we can educate and articulate our vision to the public, we would be doing ourselves and them a terrible disservice. Commissioner Smith, you're next.
Before Harold said he was going to withdraw, I was going to withdraw, and I think you just summed it all up perfectly. I'm discouraged at what just transpired, but I understand it. And having gone through multiple planning exercises before and watched it happen, but I think what you just summed up, Ed, I think was probably the most important, that if anything came out of this conversation, it was that there's a need for a discussion on what would be next on an acquisition program and what would that acquisition program look like. We talked to Loxalucy people about it over the last couple of years, and we've had a lot of discussion down south. But I think that that's where the focus ought to be, and if that takes an educational component to get people up to speed, because you could sit here and list 10 different discussions that we've had over the years that people with the best of intentions come in here and tell us we should do something, and then when you tell them what we've been doing and they have no idea because we don't talk about it enough, we don't show people enough what we've accomplished. I think it's funny that Commissioner Jenkins would pick Canopus as one of his pieces of property. Years ago, that was a huge conversation with a development that was going to happen there. And a former county commissioner had a really good strategy about how to tie those headwaters together and do a project that would have been incredibly environmentally sensitive and well done, and the owner at the time wanted no part of it and backed away from it.
And you would have bought it for half the price that it's going to cost now.
That is probably for sure. So anyway, I appreciate the conversation. It's kind of a shame where it ended up going, and I don't mean that disparagingly to our commission. It's just, that is a reflection of, and Ed said it probably perfectly fine, what will happen to the process, and I just appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. Commissioner Heatherington.
I think it's unfortunate because when the hard discussions start, then, this is what it comes down to, because it's a conversation that has to be had. It's going to be had by us. Or the state's going to dictate how we do it. And I completely agree with your land acquisition comments. The only thing that I fear, Commissioner Campy, is if you just rely on a ballot initiative for land acquisition, then we've got residents here that don't understand what we own. So, and Commissioner Smith just said that there has to be an educational and outreach component. And it has to be done now before there's any kind of ballot initiative. And it has to be done proactively so that we understand what we have, what's valuable, where we're looking at. And I think that audit, and whether it's done by staff in a very big overview, that is something I would like to see come back, and just come back to this board and in a very general overview, say, this is what we've accomplished. It doesn't have to be, a detailed study, but it should be presented to this board on what had been accomplished and where do we go from there. And then some kind of strategy needs to be implemented to go and for outreach efforts in our community, because we will not have an effective land acquisition strategy if the residents of the county don't understand why it's important, what we have, and potentially what's valuable to have and why.
Very strong points. Commissioner Jenkins.
I will not support a ballot initiative for a sales tax thing without education and understanding of our general population of what it is we're focused on, because they're not going to support it. I know that for a fact. Two, just something, without doing proper planning, studying, we are turning over our decisions as this body to a judge, to a jury. We're already experiencing it right now. So when we don't do our job, which I think this is a vital part of, 10 years from now, when some New York, whatever, Wall Street thing comes to, because
Maybe they're from Michigan.
California, okay, group comes in and buys a large parcel of land, we're done. So just throwing that out there.
Okay.
So if we want to make it politics, win the battle, lose the war, that's what we're doing today.
The same thing, but did nothing.
Today.
Well, and then let me just push this in, Commissioner Hurd, and then you will have the comments. Several years ago, we sunsetted the Land Selection Committee. What was it called?
LASC, Land
Acquisitions Selection Committee. That was in place for a long time. We sunsetted it because we basically ran out of money, and they were just meeting for meeting. Maybe there's a conversation to had. Like I gleaned a little bit from each of my colleagues as they spoke. We can, it will be a small scale exercise, easy for us to give you additional work. But maybe what we do, Commissioner Smith still has it, take those binders out and have a review where we can have an agenda item in the future, in-house agenda item in the future, to look at that and see what did it say 20 years ago and how did we do? Before we spend $500,000 on someone else telling us the exact same thing. We can look at that. That, every step of the process educates our residents. The more, look, I know a lot of people say, well, it gets political. We're elected officials. Every couple of years, there's campaigns, and whether it's over this issue or other issues, people want us in or out. So when people say to me, it can't be political, everything elected officials do as politicians is political. The most we can buffer it down, the better. I think the concept of a sales tax, you're right, it's dead on arrival if we don't present it properly. Now, I know Ms. Woods can help us with, once something is initiated, the commission and the staff can no longer be sort of campaigning and lobbying for its success. But there was a fine line between educating and lobbying. I don't know when that starting clock would start, if we could have these conversations a year ahead of time. We'll need to educate people to do it. The concept that works best today for me is that several times I heard people say, well, the plan would be where development will go. And to me, the plan is where development does not go, not the opposite. And so I'm out this morning based on the fact that if we can't decide, and we're totally tuned in with the successes and failures of the process, there's no way that the residents will. And you know, when we have these meetings, the folks that are very organized and vocal opposed to this will be out in force. And the folks that are not 100% sure, or, don't have time or energy, they're busy working and have kids, not that the folks that are opposed to it don't have those things, but we've been to these meetings. The people that are opposed to something come out in force, and then a majority of the public, which we would need to vote to support this if we're going to tax them, they don't come. Whether it's the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, 1,000 Friends of Florida, they're not magical. They're not going to be able to fill high school auditoriums with people that are desperate to hear more about this. A lot of them rely on us as their representatives to make these determinations for them. I think today was an excellent conversation. I don't look at this conversation as a failure. I look at it as we've hashed out differences of opinions, and we understand a different path forward that's not going to cost $500,000 and create strife in our community. We don't need to spend that money to do that. We could probably do that for free. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, we do have a plan. It's called the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan, and it spells out precisely how, when, where development occurs in Martin County. We, unfortunately, the majority here, has been creating plans by exception rather than following the rule. We do that through the approval of comprehensive plan amendments. If we didn't do comprehensive plan amendments and just followed the plan, we would have a very, very clear, predictable, transparent, accountable growth management plan. We do. So it's largely embedded in Chapter 4, the future land use element. So don't think for a minute that we don't have a plan. We do. We have a very careful, balanced, predictable plan.
Commissioner Hurd, I preface my comments with all due respect. When you speak of the majority, I'm assuming you're looking at everyone to your left at some vote or another. The 4 years that we didn't have the majority, when you completely relied on the comprehensive plan, was lawsuits and litigation and failure in court, and a lot of unnecessary, unintended consequences took place during that time. The plan is a gold standard plan, but it's not etched in granite. The 10 Commandments are, but nothing else can be, because residents will look at that plan and that, like Commissioner Jenkins said, they'll go to court, which they did a lot during the time that we did not have the majority, and they were successful. I remember watching meetings where applicants would come with the court stenographer. These meetings are all recorded, but they came with the court stenographer to hear the board majority at that time put down what they thought was the appropriate, and several of them left here and immediately filed a lawsuit. And if I'm not an expert on all of the history of it, many of those lawsuits were agreed by a judge or a jury for the developer against the county. So that's not the proper strategy for creating and crafting a future plan either. I lean in with you on a lot of your future vision of what Martin County should look like. But to say that it's the comprehensive plan and that's the beginning, the middle, and the end is not going to work. And if a judge doesn't decide or a jury doesn't decide, Tallahassee will decide. Now, I know that sounds for a lot of people like sort of a scary boogeyman strategy, but not really. I mean, we have had other things ripped out of our hands that we thought we should be handling, and they get handled in Tallahassee. The city of Stuart just got a decision from the state from the cabinet, including the governor, and now people in Stuart are wringing their hands that they didn't like that decision. That's where we leave it to unless we have a legitimate plan to move forward. Comprehensive plan is the North Star, but it can't be the only way we move forward because people that don't like it will find another way around it, and then we have no control. Commissioner Heatherington.
That was a good summary, and I'll leave it at that, except for just to make sure that we have direction to bring back some overview of the green belt, or whatever you call, by staff.
Mr. Donaldson?
So I have two items, I think, for staff to look at. Is one, to see what we can look at the old plan, those were discussed here, but I think the most important piece of that was to look at what we've accomplished. And I think, the award we had this morning of John Mayle, I think some of the summaries of all the water quality projects we've done ties into that. So I think there's a lot we can certainly educate on what's been accomplished in the last 23 years since that 2020 plan was done. But then we can look at other elements of that plan from the aspect of the future planning issues, and then tie that into what else we would need to look at the how do we preserve what we have in the western area? What's critical for a potential land acquisition if that's where we go next?
Does that sound about right to my colleagues? Thank you. Sound about right for staff? Thank you. Commissioner Smith, are you withdrawing your motion?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, well, he withdrew the second, but okay, so that motion is done. That's the end of our agenda. I will open it to public comment. Any public comment, end of the day, public comment? Seeing none, I'd come back to my colleagues. Commissioner Hurd?
I'm done.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Done.
Commissioner Heatherington? Commissioner Smith? I'm also set. Mr. Donaldson, Ms. Woods?
I was just simply going to add in terms of what we accomplished, one of the items that Commissioner Smith and I heard at our presentation at the Coastal Conference was from Taylor, looking at the resilience. They came up with this resilience index, and they used Martin County Beach. So I'm going to invite them to come and make a presentation to the board. We'll have to ask them to reduce the technical details of it quite a bit, but the two individuals from Taylor did a phenomenal job. And anyway, I'm going to invite them as part of some of the things. Again, it leads to some of the accomplishments that Martin County's achieved. I think you'll be impressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next commission meeting will be on Tuesday, February 21st, and we will see you then.